Good evening. You're watching the ACC on ESPN live from Midtown Atlanta, Russ Chandler Stadium. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets hosting the Auburn Tigers. I'm Wiley Baylor, joined by Roddy Jones. Thrilled to have you with us on this Tuesday night that features a top 25 midweek matchup between two teams that have been trending in opposite directions, Roddy, beginning with the Auburn Tigers. They are 8-7 in the SEC, but since the middle of March, they have struggled mightily. Just 6 wins in the last 16 games. You can see right there in the numbers, they've had a tough go of it thus far.
You're exactly right, Wiley, and that includes being 2-6 in the month of April. Now, part of that is coincided with them getting into the heart of SEC play, one of the toughest conferences in the entire country, but Auburn's had a lot of pitching injuries that they've had to overcome during that stretch.
Meanwhile, for Georgia Tech, they have won 5 consecutive ACC series. First time they've accomplished that since 2005, and they've been winning ball games all sorts of ways.
They certainly have. They've done it in pitching duels. They've done it in slugfests. They have been fantastic in the starting rotation like you thought. The bullpen has been a lot better, and those bats have really started to heat up since March 19th.
And that's not just the weekend rotation we're talking about. As you get a look at a spectacular setting, the Auburn Tigers, number 23, Georgia Tech, number 16. And the nice temperatures after yesterday, we saw them down in the low 50s. So things have heated up just in time. But not just the weekend rotation, but also in the midweek spot. Amos Willingham has done great things for Georgia Tech. Meanwhile, here are the Auburn Tigers, offensively led by Judd Ward. And this is a lineup that has scuffled a little bit, 13th in the SEC in runs per game, less than 6 per contest. 24 home runs, is second to last in the SEC. They have struggled to string things together, in part because of the struggles of Will Holland, the junior, batting 7th tonight, Stephen Williams and Edouard Julian, a couple of All-American freshmen who have struggled. But there's Amos Willingham on the mound, the right-hander for the Yellow Jackets, standing 6'4", 220 pounds, a transfer from Snead State Community College, first junior college transfer in over a decade for Georgia Tech, but he has entered the rotation seamlessly, and Roddy, he's got quite the spike curveball.
He certainly does. You're going to see great stuff from Willingham. He's going to come at you with that hard fastball, but the curveball is really the pitch to look out for. And then he's a midweek warrior. This is a guy that's been a consistent stalwart in the midweek for Georgia Tech. Actually got a weekend start a couple weeks ago against North Carolina. He's been beat up a little bit in his last 2 starts. That start against North Carolina and his last appearance in the midweek a week ago against Georgia, where he went 2 innings, gave up 2 earned runs, 3 runs overall, and was pulled because, in part, of that short rest.
Second meeting between these two schools in 2019 is underway. First pitch from Willingham sails outside at 6:03 local time on Judd Ward. Sophomore from Russellville, Alabama, hitting .267 this year. But Georgia Tech as a pitching staff, ERA of 4.23. That's 8th in the ACC. This past weekend against Boston College, in their 26 innings, they had an ERA of 2.42 in a spacious ballpark. We've got great starts from Connor Thomas and Brant Herter on Saturday and Sunday. They combined to go 14 innings, allowing just 1 run on 7 hits. And struggling with location, a 4-pitch walk to Judd Ward. Amos's last 2 starts, he's 0-2 in 6 innings, giving up 6 runs earned, 9 total. 9 hits and 5 walks. That has come against a pair of top 25 opponents, the North Carolina Tar Heels on a Friday night and Georgia over in Athens last Tuesday night. No different tonight, taking on a top 25 team. Here's Kaysen Howell. There's another one that misses the strike zone.
You know, Wiley, it's funny when you think about a midweek starter. You see the stats for Kaysen Howell. You think about a midweek starter in Amos Willingham. Usually you're talking about a guy that's facing off against competition that's maybe a little bit less than what you see on the weekends. For Amos Willingham, it's exactly what you see on the weekends in ACC play. And the ACC is one of the best conferences in the country. Kaysen Howell has gotten off to quite the freshman season.
Both these teams had great success early in the midweek. Georgia Tech 8-1 this year. Their only loss coming last Tuesday night in Athens. Auburn 6-3, but they've lost 3 in a row. First swing of the day for Auburn as Howell flicks that one foul. Freshman from Texas hitting .295 this year. Mostly singles, a speed demon, 12 stolen bases this year, second on the team with Ward aboard at first. There's the curveball. Nice stop by Cameron Turley, getting the start behind the plate.
Usually for Tech, it's Kyle McCann behind the plate, who has been so good this year, replacing Joey Bart behind the plate, particularly defensively. But as you said, Cameron Turley getting some work early.
Ground ball skidded through the right side, and Ward thinks about first to third, but they'll play station to station here in the top of the first. And Auburn, a couple of men aboard here. A leadoff walk followed by an opposite field single from Kason Howell.
It's a good piece of hitting there. That ball's actually off the plate outside, and you get Howell lining it through the gap, right side of the infield, and Auburn's got something cooking here in the first.
40th knock on the season for the Argyle, Texas native. That brings up Edouard Julien from Quebec City. Willingham, a little bit of trouble here early. And Famous Amos, as they call him. This is high. So look at the numbers for Julien. He, a year ago, was one of 3 Tigers who return, having hit 10 or more homers. He, Will Holland, along with Stephen Williams, combined to hit 41 home runs last season. So Auburn felt like they'd have some power coming back, and they do. It just hasn't shown up in the games thus far. They are second to last in the SEC in slugging percentage. And 6th in stolen bases. They've tried to find other ways to generate those extra bases after the ball's in play as opposed to banging them off the wall. Ground ball, chopped to second. Wilhite tries to go to second. And he gets the, not lead runner, but runner from first. So that'll be a fielder's choice. Keeps the double play in order. And Ward moves up to third.
That was a really good, quick decision there by Austin Wilhite. I didn't think he had any chance of getting Howell at second base, but a great flip and delivery to second base, and he's able to keep one runner out of scoring position. Auburn still has the runner on third base, and that can be big over the course of the game if you're able to keep those guys out of scoring position. So a great decision there by Wilhite to go to second.
Georgia Tech turned 3 double plays in their series against Boston College. Here's Connor Davis. Big slugger in the cleanup spot. Takes a curveball in for a called strike 1. Junior hitting .295 this year. 4 home runs. Underneath that one and sailing foul towards first drive here in Midtown Atlanta. Keep an eye out if you're riding past the stadium, that slow traffic. Quite frankly, I might pull over the car and catch a couple innings on your way home.
Yeah, keep your head on a swivel if you're on one of those bird scooters riding around the stadium.
Willingham ahead on the first hitter tonight. A little quail into shallow right that'll drop in for an RBI single. And Auburn leads 1-0 and 0-2. Flair into right field gives Davis the RBI and Auburn a 1-0 lead.
This is a good pitch by Amos Willingham out off the edge of the plate. And Davis is just able to get enough bat on it where it's a little blooper into shallow right field. It scores a run. It's a good piece of hitting by Davis, but if you're Willingham, you got to be frustrated. That's a pretty good pitch, almost right where you want it. Ideally, it's a little bit lower, a little bit further off the plate so that the bat doesn't quite reach it, but really good piece of hitting by Davis just to stick the bat out there and line it really softly into shallow right field.
So 1-0 Tigers. Here's Matt Scheffler. Sends a hard hit liner down the third base line. No, and I think if you speak with pitching coach Jason Howell, what he's upset about is not necessarily the 0-2 blooper, but the 4-pitch walk that began the inning.
Yeah.
That led to the run.
You're exactly right. You can't have that. Sometimes those bloopers are going to happen, but you got to prevent the walks.
Busts him inside. Another 0-2 count here on Matt Scheffler now. Auburn facing their 13th game against a ranked opponent in their last 20. They're 6-6 over that stretch.
It certainly doesn't get easier for Auburn with 4 series coming up against top 20 opponents, all conference series.
0-2. Up the middle, a soft line drive. Waddell steps aboard second, throw on to first in time. A double play ends the top of the first inning. But Auburn draws first blood, a run on 2 hits, and they leave one. You're watching ACC Baseball on the ACC Network Extra. Welcome back to Russ Chandler Stadium on a gorgeous Tuesday evening in Midtown Atlanta as the Yellow Jackets get their first crack with the bats. Luke Waddell leading off has been red hot as of late. He's jumped his average 100 points over the last month. Michael Goldberg, the ACC's leading hitter, batting in the 2-hole. But this has been a Yellow Jacket offense, 4th in the ACC in batting average, 7th in runs per game, but they have gotten stronger as the season has gone along.
They certainly have, and Luke Waddell at the top of the lineup is a big part of that.
Meanwhile, for Auburn on the hill, there's a look at Carson Skipper, freshman lefty at a Hewitt-Trussville High School. And for Carson, he sort of embodies the 2 tails of Auburn's season. There is numbers on the year. He's got a 3-pitch mix, features fastball, curveball, and a changeup, and it's a case of where the sum of the parts greater as the whole. 3-time high school state champion, so he's a winner at Hewitt-Trussville. But you can see that ERA has jumped up to 7.16. In his last 6 appearances, he's given up 15 earned runs in 5 2/3. That's an ERA just shy of 26. Speaking with Butch Thompson, 4th-year coach at Auburn before the game, he said, I just need my freshmen to calm down, relax, and do what comes natural to them. And the first pitch, a called strike on Luke Waddell, shortstop hailing from Loveland, Ohio. Last 21 games, he's hitting .368 with 25 runs scored.
Waddell was one of those guys where at the beginning of the season, Georgia Tech had a few of these guys that you expected to have really big years coming in, struggled out of the gates, but for the last about month, he has been fantastic, and it's coincided with Georgia Tech getting into the meat of ACC play, so it's been fantastic for the Jackets as well.
It's reached in 14 consecutive games. Career best. And a little chopper over to second, handled by Bliss. His throw to first true. And the first out. Here's a look at Auburn's defense unit. That's 9th in the SEC in fielding percentage, 13th in double plays. Will Holland, a rocket shortstop. Edouard Julien, those are arguably 2 of the better left side infielders in the SEC. The problem has been that the offensive numbers haven't necessarily proved that, as Michael Goldberg's proved a lot with his start in 2019. Auburn getting a run from Connor Davis in the top of the first on an 0-2 single, cashing in a leadoff walk. Breaking ball misses low. Goldberg actually had his slowest week of the year. Over the last week, he was just 1 for 15 over the 4 games last week for a guy whose average was above 400 from the start of the season.
It was above 500 for a decent amount of the season. I mean, the start that this guy got off to was absolutely unconscious. He was so good to start the year that it's been somewhat of a regression to the mean over the last couple of weeks.
Low and away, ball 4. A one-out walk for Michael Goldberg. Tech drew several walks this past weekend against Boston College. And the Jackets are their first base runner.
It's been one of the things about the Georgia Tech approach this season as a lineup that's been really good for the Jackets, is forcing those walks, being patient at the plate.
David Savage, home plate umpire, Tampa native. So look at Vic Carell out at second base. At first base, Doug Vines, and at third base, Craig Barron. Here's Doug. I asked him if he's excited to be back in the South for some nicer weather. This pitch, ball 1 on the first baseman, Kyle McCann. He said, well, we had pretty nice weather up in Pittsburgh this week. I don't know what you're talking about. As he was on the Pittsburgh-Wake Forest series.
Did they really, or was he being serious?
No, he's being serious.
Okay.
It was nice weather.
Oh. This time of year in Pittsburgh, you never really know, especially with like all the storms that they've been naming coming through.
Yeah, that's not a problem in the SEC, is it?
No, not so much. No, you're gonna get pretty good weather no matter what. It might be a little hot and muggy when you get down to some of those schools, but it's had a mound visit from Matt Scheffler to his pitcher, Carson Skipper.
McCann starting at first base tonight. First time this year he's been asked to start at first. That's because Tristan English hit by a pitch on the forearm on Sunday. They feared the worst when they heard it. It was loud, and Tristan was visibly in pain, but the preseason All-American expects to at least have a chance to return this week. He's available to pitch tonight, should he be needed in his closer role. So there were several bated breaths still in that 7-0 win for Georgia Tech on Sunday, waiting to see if English was going to be healthy.
If you're Georgia Tech, as much as you like the fact that Tristan English has I'll say forced, maybe been the unfortunate recipient of is a better way to describe it. It's the 16 hit by pitches this year. It's one of the tops in the country. Eventually, you got to think, I mean, Tristan, whatever you're doing to become a magnet for the ball, stop doing it. because you can have that happen. I say that tongue in cheek as Kyle McCann goes down swinging.
A nice pitch there. McCann looking back to speak with David Savage to see if that was a ball or a strike. That had a lot of run on it.
Sure did. And it looked like, I don't know if that was like a cutter or it was hard enough to be a cutter, but like you said, Wiley, a lot of run, almost gave it a slider-like quality. That thing ran just off the plate. A really good pitch by Skipper to finish off Kyle McCann.
Well, here's Barron Radcliffe now. Sophomore from Peachtree Corners, Georgia. Launched his 4th home run of the season on Saturday. A deep drive to right field. Barron's hit 3 of his 4 homers in the deepest ballparks Georgia Tech will play in this year, Louisville and Boston College. Runner takes off from first. Pitch is high. The throw down to second is higher, and Goldberg's going to take off for third, and a bobble in center field by Howell. But recovers quickly enough, and now Georgia Tech a chance to tie it. And
Michael Goldberg, a guy who doesn't get credit for how well he runs a lot, deciding to steal the bag, and it's just sailed by Scheffler behind the plate. The throw allows him to take third base, and wisely stopping there.
That is the 41st steal for Georgia Tech this season. 4th error on Scheffler. And a 3-0 count on Barron Radcliffe. What else is new? There are some guys who feel like counts always 0-2 on me. Well, Barron feels that way. He has no right to. He has drawn several walks this year. And there's another. Radcliffe with his 26th free pass of the season. He has just 19 hits.
Well, Wiley, last year, if you look at what Barron Radcliffe did at the plate, it was a lot of impatience, a lot of trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark, and a lot of swinging at pitches that weren't necessarily in the zone. The approach that he's taken this year is in large part what's kept him in the lineup. Obviously, the injury to Chase Murray has allowed him to enter the lineup, but he has made himself invaluable because he's had such a great eye and shown so much patience.
For a guy who had 89 at-bats last year, Roddy, and struck out 44 times. Here's Austin Wilhite. He shows bunt. Pitch in the dirt. Austin, perhaps the hottest hitter on this Yellow Jacket team. His last 10 games, not only has he reached in all of them, but he's got a .444 average. He's also drawn 5 walks and stolen, or rather, drawn 6 walks and stolen 5 bases. On the flip side for Auburn, the walks have been perhaps the biggest issue for them over this tough stretch. Just 2-6 this month. They've lost 10 of their last 14 games. Back up the middle and sneered. Skipper flips on to first and finds a way to deal a scoreless first inning. Carson Skipper works around a couple of walks. Great reflexes atop the bump, and after one, it's Auburn 1, Tech nothing. Top of the second inning, Georgia Tech in Auburn facing off. Wiley Ballard joined by Roddy Jones, who, in the eyes of some, hung the moon.
How about that?
Amos Willingham, meanwhile, problem for him, he's been hanging a few too many curveballs his last couple of starts. And that one right off the shin, a long ricochet, and Willingham backhand flip. It's off the glove of McCann. Woolley takes a tumble, still going to second base, and Rankin Woolley will end up at second base after a bizarre play.
Well, you can't be mad at the aggressiveness that Amos Willingham shows here. You got to hope that he's okay, but gets over, scrambles to this ball, the backhand flip. It would have been a crazy play. But as is, gets into shallow foul territory in right field, and Woolley's able to get to second base. You can't really fault him for making that play, though. He's going to take some warm-up tosses, make sure he's all right.
That'll go in the books as an infield single and then a E1. Been a rocky start here for Amos. Didn't do himself any favors with the walk to begin the first inning, but gives up an 0-2 blooper that cost him a run in the first, and then takes a rocket from Rankin Woolley, who slowed down a little bit offensively these past couple of weeks, but a good sign for the Atlanta native, as he was not lacking for exit velocity on that swing. And here's Will Holland now, the shortstop. Projected first-round pick at the start of the season. He's struggled so far this year. Ball one on the breaking ball. But Coach Thompson was quick to point this out for the Lawrenceville, Georgia native that, hey, with what he's done defensively at short, he hasn't lost any value there in the eyes of pro teams. And his track record as a freshman and sophomore speaks for itself. So if he's able to recapture some of that firepower and again, that speed and power combo, which can be so lethal on the diamond, this last 6-7 weeks of the college season, he could restore that draft stock instantaneously.
Yeah, and a lot of what these teams are looking for are the tools. And he's had 2 years in one of the toughest conferences in the country, performing at a very high level. Yes, he struggled this year, and with coaching and with time, he'll get back to where he was. So I could still see him in that first, second round range.
Grounder chopped to third, foul. Nice effort by Jackson Webb, who has slowly wrestled that third base job away from Oscar Serratos. That was probably the most heated battle through the first half of the season. And for Jackson, a guy who's been pressed in to play several positions. He's played third, second, and first at points this year. And furthermore, he's reached base in 13 of his last 14 games that he's gotten to the plate. And on top of that, he's done it over a stretch of about 30, 35 team games, Roddy. So it's been inconsistent. Not bad for the graduate transfer from UCF at the hot corner. On top of this one, Webb, another rep at third base. He can't get enough of those.
And going back to Will Holland, a lot of times when you're struggling, he's fouled a couple off to Webb, you start to press and chase a little bit, and that last swing kind of shows him pressing a little bit. That's a 2-strike count where you're protecting the plate, but that ball is up around the shoulders. Certainly would have been a ball.
Challenged him up. That was around the chin.
Exactly, and when you get into these slumps and mentally you're having to work your way out of it, you're up against a pitcher like Amos Willingham, you start to guess, and when you're swinging at fastballs up in the zone, that tells me you're looking for a breaking ball. And when that fastball comes, you're expecting breaking ball, and then reacting late to it, deciding you're going to swing early. And that's not something that Holland did a year ago.
Hammer stays high. Willingham's faced his fair share of adversity as well, suffering from ulcerative colitis disease. Fills up the count here against Will Holland. It's basically when you have inflammation and ulcers of the colon, causes severe abdominal pain. And that flared up bad on Willingham this time last year. He missed most of his sophomore season at Snead State Community College, but has since gotten it taken care of and hasn't had it flare up on him. As Holland sends a deep drive to left field, but that one's way foul, and that's precisely why scouts are far from giving up on Will Holland.
You're exactly right. The ball got out of here in a hurry. In terms of hitting, it's always one of the hardest things to do. Line one foul would have certainly been a home run, and then come back and have that opposite field approach. If I'm Amos Willingham, I'm going down and out on this pitch and daring Will Holland to hit it.
Out in front, but stays alive. He's now seen 8 offerings from Willingham. I think it's safe to say he's emptied the toolbox. 10th pitch of the at-bat, excuse me.
It's one of those at-bats that although you've swung at a couple pitches out of the zone, you've taken some good pitches, you put some good swings on the baseball. If Will Holland's able to get a hit, this is one of those at-bats that could start to get you going. You've seen a ton of pitches, you're fighting, you're battling. Just do a lot for the psyche here. See the ball find grass.
And works a 10-pitch walk. 4th walk of the game thus far. 2 for Georgia Tech in the bottom of the first, 2nd for Willingham. And now runners at first and second for Stephen Williams. Right fielder from Albany, Georgia. Sophomore season. But between the likes of Will Holland and Stephen Williams, you felt pretty confident in Auburn's offense, and mixing in as Edouard Julien as well. That trio coming back, and they've struggled to get it all going at the same time, and I think it's not too great a leap to put 2 and 2 together and say that the pitching struggles as of late have added even more pressure on them.
I think that's absolutely fair, and it's tough to put it just on those guys, but and a couple of guys that are coming back from freshman seasons that were really good. There's more scouting on them as well, so it's possible SEC pitching has just caught up.
Well struck to center field. Wilhite at the wall will make the catch. Woolley tagging from second up to third, and Williams thought he'd gotten all of that one. Sent it to the deepest part of the park. There's a look at the Georgia Tech defense. Cameron Turley getting the start behind home plate. Just his 2nd career start, part of the domino effect of Kyle McCann moving to first, as Tech's regular first baseman Tristan English out tonight with a forearm injury, listed as day-to-day. But Nick Wilhite in center field, if it's not over the fence, he's going to track it down.
Kyle McCann moving over to first also gives him an opportunity to be in the lineup, involved in the defensive action without that beating that he's taking behind the plate. He's been an Iron Man behind the plate. He really has. And I think a lot of the question was how would he respond being the everyday guy. All he's done is have a more productive season behind the plate or at the plate and been a stalwart behind the plate as well.
This is only the third game that Kyle McCann has not been Georgia Tech's starting catcher. Pickoff throw over to first, but Max saw most of his time his first 2 years, Roddy, at first base. It happens when you have Joey Bart, who was the second overall pick and the heir apparent to Buster Posey, ahead of you and drafted out of Georgia Tech last year. High and tight there on Ryan Bliss. He's been second leadoff man in the 9 spot. A freshman, very young team for Auburn this year. Rankin Woolley, in his first year, he's at third base after his leadoff single. Trying to keep an eye on Will Holland, who has 13 stolen bases this year, 15 attempts. Auburn, a one-run home in the top of the first, looking for more here in the second. Willingham really struggling with his location here in this start.
Yeah, and he's been leaving some pitches high. We've seen that a number of times. It's been kind of a theme over the last few outings for Amos Willingham. Certainly in the start in the midweek against Georgia and the North Carolina start on the weekend before that. That one was tough. North Carolina is one of the best teams in the country at forcing walks, and they just really got after Amos Willingham, really made him work, but control was so good for him. And get a look at Ryan Bliss, who's done a good job of taking advantage of that lack of control and getting ahead 3-1.
In 6 midweek starts this year, he's issued just 3 walks, but issued 2 tonight. But over his last 2 starts, given up 6 runs with 5 walks. He had 5 against North Carolina. Came back with a breaking ball that time. Not a bad idea, considering that you're struggling to throw the fastball in the zone. I was reading something last week, Roddy, that the idea of a fastball count is almost dead now.
Like so many other things we've seen in sports, you know, the fastball count, the thought that you have to be a team that scores in the paint in basketball and a team that runs the ball consistently in football. It seems like all of those have evolved over the course of time, and we're in a place now where there is no dead red. Pitchers have learned to mix up their pitches as batters have started to swing for the fences more.
Holland is off, and Bliss sends this one skyward. And McCann will watch this one land in the seats here at Russ Chandler Stadium. Yellow Jackets 15-7 here at home. Auburn 8-6 on the road. That matches last year's road win total for the Tigers. Not bad for a team that won 43 games. But they were dominant at home and had a great run in the postseason, including their first ever Super Regional victory, as they were within 1 run of Omaha. Pickoff throw over to first. And wow, what a turnaround by Butch Thompson and his staff over these 4 years. When this series began between Georgia Tech and Auburn, the Tigers were regularly over the last couple of years at the bottom of the SEC, but we're sitting here tonight, a top 25 matchup. Runner goes again, and Bliss again spoils Willingham's payoff pitch.
And to do it in that conference, Wiley, is one of the toughest things to do in the entire country. I mean, you're talking week in and week out. You play a ranked team or a team that's receiving votes. And we're not just talking about teams that are barely ranked. I mean, you're talking about top 10 baseball teams with first-round talent. It is the toughest conference in the country.
Bliss choking up. Well, he can't straighten that thing out. That said, I don't think he's so much worried about as much as Amos Willingham.
I mean, we're here in the top of the second, and Amos Willingham is about to throw pitch 39. This Auburn team, part of that's been the doing of Amos Willingham. Struggled to find the zone a little bit, but especially in the last two hitters, the 10-pitch at bat by the guy you just see there. Excuse me, by Will Holland earlier in the inning. And then this at bat as well. It's really made Amos Willingham work.
Right-hander from Summerville, Georgia, reaching deep into the glove. Trying to find something to get Ryan Bliss out with. Won't be that. Went to the breaking ball, trying to get the swing and miss. Didn't, and that'll load the bases. Third walk for Willingham, and here comes the top of the order and Judd Ward. So Woolley at third, Holland at second, Bliss at first. And Danny Hall, 26th season as the Yellow Jacket skipper, will go to the bullpen. As Willingham, his first trip through the lineup, he retires just 3 of the 9 men he faced. We'll be back in just a moment. New pitcher on the hill for Georgia Tech. Auburn leading 1-0 and threatening for more. Well, it's going to be a long night for the Georgia Tech bullpen as Jake Lee comes out of the left field station to make his 11th appearance of the season. ERA is not pretty at 7.5, but it's been feast or famine for Lee. Twirled a scoreless inning against Boston College in which he struck out all 3 men. But you go back to his prior ACC appearance, he didn't get an out, gave up a 3-run homer. So the key for Jake Lee is going to be the slider. It's been his money pitch this year, although he did not throw as many of them against Boston College on Friday night. Native of Brooks, Georgia. One of 4 seniors in the Yellow Jacket pen. And Jake's been asked to wear a lot of hats over his Georgia Tech career. He's been a one-batter guy. He's been a long relief guy. He's even got a complete game win on his college resume against Duke a couple years back.
Yeah, that was a ACC game that he'll never forget. It's an incredible performance.
But he started conference tournament games. He started midweek games. I mean, he's done about everything, and he's done it with a smile and an extremely dry sense of humor.
He's going to be asked to get out of a sticky spot here. It's funny, you mentioned the feast or famine, while he's only given up runs in 2 of his 10 appearances this season.
Misses inside, ball 1 on Judd Ward. Yet to see a strike tonight. Ward walked on 4 pitches and scored Auburn's first run in the first. Lee trying to limit the damage. Some of those appearances, Roddy, he's thrown nothing but sliders. This doesn't look to be one of them. Challenged him on the inner half.
Lee's a guy that's got really good stuff, which is part of the reason you've seen him in so many different roles for Coach Danny Hall. He's going to be asked to give him some pretty good innings in this one, as he's going to be has to get out of a sticky situation, as we said.
Oh, corner pocket pitch. It's not easy to go down and in on a left-handed hitter as a righty, but he's doing it.
The question is, where do you go next? And got Ward to chase the first pitch. Nailed that one on the inside corner. Do you try and go inside again? Expect him to go down in the zone, maybe out of the strike zone to get him a chase.
The 1-2, backdoor slider, poked into center field, down for a base hit. That'll score 1 run and 1 run only, as Auburn will play it station to station. Wow, what an impressive swing from Judd Ward. That wasn't a bad pitch.
It was not a bad pitch. As you said, it's down in the outside corner. Maybe a little bit more of the plate than Jake Lee would have wanted, but great piece of hitting by Judd Ward. It's the second time we've seen an Auburn hitter just flick the head of the bat out there, get enough on it to bloop it out to the outfield for a productive at-bat. you have to commend Auburn for their approach so far. They've made it tough on these Georgia Tech pitchers even when they made good pitches.
First pitch breaking ball in for a strike on Cason Howell. I've been extremely impressed. Connor Davis, a similar opposite field approach. I know that was up the middle, but Ward again on his front foot kind of leaning over the plate.
That's a tough pitch. That's a protect the plate kind of swing, and by being disciplined and having great bat control, you're just able to get enough on it to flick it out to the outfield.
3 of Auburn's 4 hits tonight have come with 2 strikes. Howell in an 0-2 hole. Ground ball wrapped third base. Webb feed to second, turn to first. Will be late. That'll be another run for Auburn. Will Holland comes in to score. That ball hit too softly to try and turn 2.
That was going to be a tough play to turn 2 on, as you said, Wiley. No matter what, Webb does a good job getting it to second. Will Height actually made a pretty good turn, but she said that ball hit so softly that it was able to be legged out by Howell, and Auburn scores and extends the lead to 3.
Auburn got out to a 3-0 lead over Georgia Tech 2 weeks ago. Jackets wound up winning that game 9-3. Lee again trying to limit the damage here. He's given up 2 of the 3 inherited runners, facing Edouard Julien. Hops on the first pitch, sends it to first, but foul. Well, one thing that has not been the case for Jake Lee is he's been able to throw strikes. It was Willingham really struggled throwing strikes. Starter for Georgia Tech, who is still responsible for Ryan Bliss at third, through 40 pitches and only 23 for strikes.
Jake Lee has done what he's been asked to do. It's such a tough situation when you come in with the bases loaded, less than 2 outs, because you can make good pitches, get guys on the front foot, and as long as they're able to put the ball in play, they're likely going to score unless you're able to turn 2. So Lee's done a pretty good job so far.
Julien over 100 career RBI. Looking for number 102, perhaps more, here in this at-bat. Auburn scored a run, an RBI single from Connor Davis in the top of the first. They have added 2 here in the top of the second. RBI single from Judd Ward. Fielder's choice from Cason Howell drove in the 3rd run. But Ryan Bliss critical at bat. 9-pitch walk, also a 10-pitch walk from Will Holland. That's been the story of the inning in my mind.
Yeah, if you look at those 2 at bats, and they were extremely productive, really demoralizing at bats if you're Amos Willingham, who battled constantly in those 2 long ones that he ended up allowing walks to both of those guys. And you look at those 2 guys, they both haven't come around to score, but that's part of the story, as you said. Well, Holland has already scored. Bliss now on third base, and it's ultimately what cost Amos Willingham a spot on the mound.
And for Auburn, it's got to be a nice feeling being the team receiving the walks and cashing them in, because they've been issuing them lately, much to the frustration of the entire pitching staff. But you can draw a line in the sand pretty clearly after that Tennessee series in mid-March. They were top 10 in the nation in fewest walks per 9 innings. Last 16 games, they've issued almost 6 walks per 9 as a staff. Runner goes, pitches inside, no throw down from Turley. Stolen base for Cason Howell. And this becomes a critical point in the game here, Ronnie, because a base hit from Edouard Julien. And all of a sudden, this thing's blown a little wide open here. It's still early, of course, but Yellow Jackets trying to stay within striking distance here. Lee's got the payoff ready to go. Called strike 3 on the inside corner. Jake Lee able to strand a pair of runners in scoring position, but Auburn, thanks to some gritty at-bats, cashes in 2 more runs. They lead 3-0 early in Atlanta. Mid-April in Midtown Atlanta, middle of the second inning, and Georgia Tech trailing Auburn 3-0. As the Tigers have come out and shown a spectacular offensive approach. They put in blue-collar at-bats to draw walks, and their 2 run-scoring hits have been on tough pitches that they've taken up the middle or the other way, as Colin Hall, son of head coach Danny Hall, in the box.
And both of those 2 hits, Wiley, if I'm not mistaken, were 2 strikes as well. Just great approaches, gritty at-bats from Auburn.
You're absolutely correct, as Colin Hall unloads his first swing. Sophomore out of the Wesleyan School in Alpharetta. Leads the team with 11 doubles. Several of those have been up the left field line. Drafted by the Rockies out of high school. Last 7 games, though, he's scuffled a little bit. Just 6 for 29. Ronnie, that was a borderline pitch there that sat down Edouard Julien in the top of the second inning with runners at second and third. Back up through the box, charging. Holland jump throw, a little off target, but on the tag. Rankin Woolley makes the play. He played phenomenally a couple weeks ago at first base, stretching for throws. He can go down to a full split there at first, and that time a different type of footwork.
Just look what he does here. He flips around, doesn't quite get back to the bag, but has the presence of mind to tag Colin Hall on the chest. That's some pretty good maneuvering. If you don't think so at home, just try and do that. Try and flip, tag.
I'm not sure. Are we advocating people to try and do that at home?
Okay, you're
that could
right.
be a little dangerous. As this pop up on the bunt from Jackson Webb, there's a few couple outs. Sorry, Roddy. Just trying to play it safe there.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think that through. I could see people pulling groins and throwing out their back as
someone who'd be included in the injured list. If I tried to do that, I'm going to go ahead and say no.
Well, I think a lot of people would be injured if they tried to do what Matt Scheffler just did behind the plate, would throw the mask off and catch that bunt attempt a lot harder than he made it look.
Cameron Turley digging in. And for Turley, this is just his 5th plate appearance of the year. He's 0 for 2 with a couple of walks. Strong high school quarterback. Got a great arm. There's some who believe that by the time his career is over at Georgia Tech, he might be on the mound. Takes ball 2.
I think he hopes he follows in the lineage of the past 2 Georgia Tech catchers. When you look at Kyle McCann, who will certainly hear his name called in June, Major League Baseball draft, and Joey Bard, who was a number 2 overall pick. I'm Cameron Turley. I'm hoping that I follow in those footsteps.
Well, when you talk about pitching, it makes you think of Matt Wieters, who catch 8 innings for Tech.
Yeah. It is so hard to do, man.
But a 1-2-3 inning. Carson Skipper looking like his old self as he's brimming with confidence along with a 3-0 lead. We go to the top of the 3rd. Top of the 3rd inning, Auburn 3, Georgia Tech nothing, Midtown Atlanta. Tigers off to a great start here on the road. Court Rodig trying to pitch in as a member of the bullpen here tonight after Amos Willingham was chased after an inning and a third. Jake Lee came in, got a couple of outs. And now Court Rodig, the right-hander from Orlando, Florida, graduate of Dr. Phillips High School. Making his 8th appearance of the season, 4th out of the bullpen. His last appearance was a start a little over a week ago against North Carolina. Gave up 4 runs and 4 1/3. But on only 2 hits, one of those a 3-run homer.
Yeah, Court Rodick pitched really well in that performance. It was like you said, it was 2 pitches really that cost them. North Carolina forced a couple of walks, only 1 walk during that appearance. And if you're looking for a guy who's going to give you some distance in this game, this is going to be the guy. He's got some starting experience, has pitched over 4 innings 3 times so far this season. And I think this is a guy that has the potential to be a weekend starter for Georgia Tech on a regular basis going forward. He was early this season against Richmond, and then obviously popped in for Brant Herter on a Sunday when Herter had the day off due to was nicked up a little bit, so Rodick got the start, but he is a pitcher that Georgia Tech's certainly very excited about.
Connor Davis leading off. Drove in Auburn's first run of the game on an opposite field 0-2 single. Got his batting average to 300 on the nose, leading the team in that category. Key for Court Rodick, just don't rush through your mechanics. He's got a herky-jerky delivery. And it looks fast. But when he really speeds it up, that's where he can cause some problems. Ground ball, slapped third, or short rather. And Luke Waddell with the backhand. Turns it out number 1. That's a step in the right direction for the Yellow Jackets, getting the leadoff man down.
That's something that Auburn has struggled with over the course of the years, getting the leadoff man aboard, but it had been 2 for 2 in this game, and Georgia Tech, thanks to Luke Waddell, is able to retire the leadoff hitter in this inning.
Matt Scheffler, catcher for Auburn, stepping in. The way he stands in there, Ronnie, looks like he's ready to do some damage.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, let's go.
There's some guys that I think intentionally they pick a batting stance. It's like, all right, I'm here for business. I was never one of those guys. I look too relaxed at the plate.
What's the big fuss about?
Yeah, exactly. I thought you look cool, you're going to hit cool. It worked up until college.
Look good, play good.
Yeah, exactly.
And a front door breaking ball, guided to short. Waddell a little quicker, his throw off target, and that'll go all the way to the Auburn dugout. Doesn't look like they will award Scheffler another base. A couple things there. Waddell had to rush the throw.
Yeah, he rushed it a little more than he had to. And Scheffler, the catcher, not the fleetest of foot in the Auburn lineup, had a little more time, and that one just sailed on Waddell. The arm slot dropped a little bit, got away from him, and Kyle McCann was not able to wrangle it.
They got McCann making his first start of the year at first base. He started 35 games there last year. Majority of his freshman year at that spot as well. So here's Rankin Woolley. Takes a called strike 1. That'll be an E6, 2-base error. That puts Scheffler in scoring position. Auburn a chance to tack on another run. Georgia Tech and Auburn meeting for the 238th time. But so far in this current home-and-home midweek relationship that began in 2015, Tech leads by the slimmest of margins, 5-4. Trying to sweep the series. The first time these two started the tango in 2015. It's been a split each of the first 4 years. And as of late, it's been the road team that's had the success. The road team has won 5 consecutive meetings between these two schools.
I just love the fact that they brought back the series. You know, I especially in college baseball. I'd like to see it in other sports as well, but especially in college baseball, there's no reason that these two teams that were longtime rivals shouldn't tangle up every year.
And there's a strikeout from Quarterodig as Woolley can't catch up.
It's a little hard slider that Rodig threw in there.
Yeah, I beg your pardon. That's a breaking ball. He just couldn't time it.
But it looked a little harder than the one he typically throws. Good decision to go with that pitch up in the zone. Had a little break to it. Did a great job of dancing around the bat of Woolley.
Let's see if Will Holland builds a little confidence after that 10-pitch walk. Takes ball 1. Auburn tacked on a run in the first, 2 in the second. Tigers have been dominant against non-conference opponents since the start of last season, 37-8, but 2 of those 8 losses at the hands of the Yellow Jackets. Ooh, he doubled up on it.
It's a really good 1-0 pitch right there. Start that breaking ball on the outside corner, it breaks off, and Will Holland thought he had one that he could drive.
What do we say about fastball counts?
Yeah, exactly. They don't exist anymore. You're exactly right.
Well, 2 strikes, running in scoring position. Auburn has thrived in these spots thus far.
Yeah, Will Holland's got him right where he wants him. History is any indication of what's going to happen here, but Court Rodig has been on it since he came into this game.
No, when you hit the nail on the head, he along with Luke Bartnicki, those are the 2 freshman jewels on the mound for Georgia Tech. They'll be in the weekend rotation, if not next year, soon after. So Rodig working up in the zone, or above the zone, I should say, trying to reset the eye level. Matt Scheffler aboard at second base after the throw-in error from Luke Waddell. Holland at the plate. Takes a pitch inside. He doesn't look like a guy who's struggling from what we've seen these first couple of days, or these first couple of plate appearances.
I mean, it does look like he's just off it a little bit. Like
yeah.
The contact hasn't been as solid as you'd see for a guy who's seeing the ball really well and is totally locked in. But, I mean, he certainly has not struggled to foul pitches off and to battle at the plate. And if you're a guy that's struggling a little bit, not getting the results that you want, that is a good indication, a good sign. And that's part of the reason his on-base percentage is still up over 350 at 365 on the season. He's fought. He's walked 21 times.
Drives this one to right field. Radcliffe's got it measured and will make the catch as he glides onto the track. Court Rodig works around the one-out throwing error and strands Scheffler at second base. We go to the bottom of the third. Auburn 3, Tech nothing. Bottom of the third inning on a sunny evening here in Midtown Atlanta, Russ Chandler Stadium. Auburn a 3-0 lead as we move to the bottom of the third. Jackets still without a hit. A couple miscues in the field. Nothing wrong with the man on the mound, though. Carson Skipper's been better than solid. A couple of walks there in the first inning, but since then he's settled down. Faced the 9-hole hitter Nick Wilhite to get things started as he spikes this one. Nick Wilhite, who's made a 180 offensively from his sophomore season.
It's funny that you say 180. It's about what his batting average was a year ago, but he's been so much better this year. He's almost been that second leadoff hitter down at the bottom of the lineup.
Flipping the outside corner. Well, Skipper, we've seen some of what was advertised. Ability to throw 3 pitches for strikes. And he's got another strikeout as Nick Wilhite chases one in the dirt.
Skipper has been on it. This is it's about as good a 2-strike pitch as you can make. It's a breaking ball that had late sharp break to it, down in the zone, absolutely died about 10 feet before the plate. Nick Wilhite had already decided he was swinging at it, and there was no shot of getting the bat on that one.
Luke Waddell takes ball 1. Luke, a star running back in high school, rushed for over 5,000 yards in 4 years. Peppering the right side, Bliss, head high hop, throw on the money. It's now 6 in a row set down by Carson Skipper. And again, as much as Skipper has struggled over his last 6 appearances, prior to that, he was one of the most trusted lefties on Auburn's staff, along with Jack Owen, who lost to injury, a real wrenching loss for Auburn. He gave up just 1 earned run in almost 30 innings.
So if you're Butch Thompson, Auburn's head coach, you are loving what you're seeing from Skipper on the mound here today. And as you said, this is a guy that was one of your most trusted arms, and if he can become that again, settle you down during the midweek, maybe give you some quality innings here and there during the weekend and SEC play, go a long way to steadying this pitching rotation.
Goldberg trying to turn around a 2-0 fastball. Can't get out to it. Michael. Out of Marietta, Georgia, graduate of Walton High School. Walked his first time up. Finds himself in a 3-ball count here. It takes ball 4. So a couple of walks for Michael Goldberg. Probably a name that sounds familiar to a lot of members of the Georgia Tech community. His father, Robert, was the director of bioengineering and bioscience at Tech for several years. Although Michael's senior year of high school, both Robert and Michael's mother, Tina, decided to pursue another opportunity all the way in Oregon. So if there were any questions in Michael's mind about being too close to home, those were quickly erased. Ball 1 on Kyle McCann.
It may have been a little bit of a relief for him, too, him wanting to go to Georgia Tech. People weren't going to be able to walk down the hall and talk to his parents about his grades.
Here comes Steve Smith out to the mound, volunteer pitching coach for Auburn. But many over in Texas know him as the longtime Baylor head coach. 21 years leading the Baylor Bears. That's a trend we've seen in college baseball now. I think of Pete Hughes over at Georgia, no longer there, stepped away, but after spending several years leading Virginia Tech and then moving on to Oklahoma as the head coach, he went over to Athens last year, and you speak with Scott Strickland, and he says Pete Hughes did a lot to kind of take some of the pressure off, kind of relax the group, and they went on to host a regional last year.
Yeah, it's
in our top 5 this year.
Yeah, it's another opinion. It's another voice in the dugout that has some weight to it, that's able to speak from a leadership position because they know it, and it's probably a relief for them not to be the guy who's having to call all the shots, get back to the grind of just worrying about one position and making that better.
Things get a little hairy here for Skipper with 2 outs. Sat down Wilhite and Waddell on just 6 pitches, but now 8 of his last 9 have missed the zone. 4th walk for Georgia Tech. They are yet to register a hit. But this is kind of a continuation of what they did on Sunday, Roddy. They defeated Boston College 7-0. Had just 6 hits on the day, but drew 9 walks. And in addition to that, they were hit 3 times in the batter's box by the pitch.
And we've talked about it a number of times. This one's actually probably on you, Wiley. I'm not going to lie to you. Skipper had been so good setting those guys down, and then started talking about the fact that he had alleviated the walk issue that's plagued this Auburn pitching staff, and the next 2 are walks. That's on you.
And there's ball 1. 9 of 10 now out of the zone. And Barron Radcliffe, who's been so disciplined at the plate this year, now's where you really test it. You're the tying run at the plate. You've got power out the wazoo. Can you be patient enough to wait and look for your pitch? Or can you be too patient?
I think it shows the maturity of Radcliffe, though. You have the confidence that with 1 or even 2 strikes, you're still going to be able to put a good swing on the baseball and be able to deliver.
Two 1-1 now. Georgia Tech lineup that has lost a little of its bite with Tristan English on the bench tonight. Suffering from a forearm injury, hit by a pitch on Sunday. And Radcliffe fouls this one out of play. Think he wants that one back?
Yep. I was going to say that was the pitch right there. And it was a pretty good swing, just a little too far under that ball. I think even his eyes may have lit up a little bit. Sometimes you get outside of the fundamentals when you see a pitch that looks that good. Skipper got away with one.
Just missed 3-2. That'll give the runners a head start here. Bottom of the 3rd inning, Skipper has walked 4, has not allowed a base hit. The Yellow Jackets are 0 for 8 off the lefty. With a couple of punch-outs. And yet to put a ball beyond the infield. Late time called and granted. Radcliffe, whose father Vic drafted in the 4th round at a North Augusta high school. Teammates with Carlos Beltran in the minor leagues. Payoff pitch. And it's rocketed to right field, and that'll be cut off just in front of the track. Goldberg comes in to score. 2 out, 2 strike RBI single for Barron Radcliffe, and the Yellow Jackets are on the board.
It's a great at-bat by Barron Radcliffe and shows the maturity and the way he has gotten so much better this season. He's able to force himself into a 3-2 count and then lines it into right field. It's a great play by Stephen Williams in right field as well, because that ball gets to the wall. Then you may see McCann come around and score from first as well, having been running on the pitch. And Georgia Tech's in business here, having scored a run, runner on 3rd. Great job by Radcliffe of breaking open the tie and shaking up the no-hitter.
No-hitter erased, and that'll do it for Carson Skipper. Issues 4 walks, but new arm coming in for the Auburn Tigers. We'll tell you more about him when we come back. Tigers 3-1 over Georgia Tech. Bottom of the 3rd inning moves along. After 2 quick outs, Carson Skipper issues a pair of walks, and then Barron Radcliffe delivers the first hit off of Skipper. And Will Morrison on in relief. Freshman from Coleman, Alabama, ERA just a shade over 4. And he's part of the Fab Five, if you will, for Auburn. Butch Thompson telling us before the game that there are 5 freshman pitchers he's counting on, given the loss of Davis Daniel and Jack Owen. Carson Skipper, one of them. Will Morrison, one of them. And that's a tall order for an SEC pitching staff, but they've really been given no choice. And so these guys are going to be asked to throw meaningful innings. Joining Morrison and Skipper, you can throw Garrett Wade, who got the start against Georgia Tech 2 weeks ago, Brooks Fuller, who was lights out on the weekend on Saturday, and Richard Fitz, who started on Sunday. But I don't think anybody draws it up that way when you start the season, but losing Jack Owen, who Coach Thompson believes will be available to throw at least a couple of innings this weekend. They're going to really push him tomorrow in his bullpen and see how he reacts. Perhaps he could be used on Saturday against Ole Miss in the series finale. In the meantime, here's Austin Wilhite. Jumping on the first pitch and fouling it off his left foot.
A lot of time you like to ease your freshman in, unlike Austin Wilhite, who's been basically starting here since he got on campus for the Jackets. But Will Morrison is now making his 4th appearance against a top 16 ball club. He's already made 3 appearances against teams ranked in the top 12.
Ground ball sent to second. This ought to do it for the 3rd, and it will. Ryan Bliss converts the chance. Georgia Tech scores a run on 1 hit. They leave a couple. And after 3, it's Auburn with a 2-run lead on ACC Network Extra. Top of the 4th inning, we got karaoke here at Russ Chandler Stadium.
Little air guitar. How about my guy?
You know, so few artists nowadays can both sing and play.
This guy's
it's
one
nice.
of them.
It's nice to know we still got the utility musicians in the stands.
And you typically don't see the air guitar for Blink-182, especially the part that doesn't really have much guitar. Well, but he's getting it.
To be fair, I always liked it better when Les was asked of me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'll do an air guitar to something real simple.
What's your favorite air guitar song?
Jaws.
Oh, wow.
Spitch fouled away.
Like the theme song to Jaws?
Stephen Williams in an 0-1 count. Yeah. I feel like I could master that one.
Okay.
That's what I said. I said whatever's.
I'm gonna go Sweet Child of Mine.
See, that's too much.
Oof,
I'm
man.
intimidated by that. The 0-1 up and away.
Or Inner Sandman by Metallica. That's my other one. Stephen Williams may have had the play of the game. I'm sorry. Stephen Williams may have had the play of the game. Him cutting that ball off in right field that was hit by Barron Radcliffe probably saved a run. It was a fantastic play. It's not one that's going to go down in the scorebook, but it's one that coaches will certainly look at as one those hidden plays in a game that can be big for you.
Just beyond the reach of Rodig. Wilhite circles around, side saddle sling. Time for the first out. Now with 2 outs, I can tell you that James Ramsey would have used any window of opportunity to send Kyle McCann home. I think it did save a run. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So 3-1 Auburn leading. Here's Ryan Bliss. Drew a 9-pitch walk his first time up, takes a strike on the inside corner. Speaking of counting on freshmen, Bliss has been rock solid defensively. Committed just 2 errors this year. And he started every game on the 3 Tigers in that camp, making his 37th start tonight. Both these teams 24-12, both of them right on the bubble of hosting. Lifted down the right field line. This looks like trouble, and it will be, as it takes 1 hop into the Auburn bullpen. And quite frankly, Ronnie, I think that's a break for Georgia Tech.
It absolutely is, because Ryan Bliss was about halfway to second base when that ball hit the ground. I mean, it was going to be a stand-up triple, no doubt about it. And Georgia Tech a little fortunate there that it bounces out of play, and Ryan Bliss able to get an extra base hit out of it, but one base less than it would have been had it been this one that skips and hits the wall and stays in, because he was motoring around the bases.
That's a big base with one out as well. Judd Ward 1 for 1 today, a run scored, a run driven in. Auburn's had a runner in scoring position every inning tonight. And a bunt attempt that time from Ward. Spins back foul.
I love the surprise bunt. Love it. I don't think it's done enough. In this age of strikeouts or home runs, the art of the bunt is a lost art, Wiley. And by the way, get off my lawn.
I was going to say, how's your lawn holding up? No, but I think that is something that we've seen incorporated by Georgia Tech at what I'm tempted to say is an unprecedented level given the history of Tech, which has always been known as a home run hitting, slugging team. Swing and a miss, pitch in the dirt, and there's the extra 90 feet from Bliss. And that puts a lot of pressure now on Court Rodig to mine for a strikeout here.
Cameron Turley did a pretty decent job behind the plate of keeping that in front of him. Just got a little far away, and Bliss able to scurry on down to third base and get that base back that he lost in the ground rule double.
Just Turley's second career start. Infield will play in now for Georgia Tech.
Did you check out that necklace that Ryan Bliss had on?
Swing and a miss. Back foot slider. They'll say Turley caught it on the fly. Big strikeout from Rodig. Higgs second. Look at the tilt on this one.
You said it, Wiley. He was going to have to mine for a strike, and he certainly did. And he got it. Started that on the inside corner about knee high. Breaks down off the plate into the dirt, and Rodig now 1 out away from getting out of this.
Well, good composure thus far from the freshman. Got a strikeout of Rankin Woolley after that errant throw from the shortstop, Luke Waddell. Swing and a miss. Speaking of mining, oh, he's tucked it in now.
Oh, man.
Ryan Bliss has got that silver number 9 right there.
Ryan, if I'm going to coach you up a little bit, if you're going to wear the bling, you got to show the bling.
Down to a knee.
By the way, Court Rodig has been throwing some jewels himself. Breaking ball down in the zone has gotten these Auburn hitters, and since Bliss's double, I mean, he has been on top of it.
Struck out Ward on 3 pitches. He's got Kason Howell on an 0-2 count. Right-hander ready. Didn't fall for it a third time. Howell, another freshman in the lineup for Auburn.
It's a young Auburn team that Butch Thompson has to hope just continues to get better over the course of the year. You said it right now. They're on the cusp of hosting a regional, but got a tough schedule to finish the year, so you're going to have to grow up quick.
Swing and a miss. Talking about bling, Court Rodig says kiss the ring. 3-1. Georgia Tech gets to 0 on the top of the 4th. Back in a moment on ACC Network Extra. I don't know about you, Ronnie, but I liked what we've seen from the young man at second base for Auburn, Ryan Bliss, out of the 9 spot, wearing number 9. He's got the 9 on the chain. Better be careful. He might find himself in that leadoff spot and got to change the whole wardrobe.
Yeah, I have to get a 1 and a 9 or something like that. But yeah, he's had a good couple of at-bats.
Auburn infield is giving the Tigers an early lead here, 3-1. Yellow Jackets, though, get the scoreless inning after striking for 1 in the bottom of the third, and now Colin Hall will go to work for Tech. And he sends a drive into right center field. Hall's thinking 2 out of the box all the way to the wall. And that is his team-leading 12th double.
Maybe the best hit ball we've seen from Georgia Tech so far in this game. Ball was absolutely laced. Gave Barron Radcliffe's double all that it could handle as well. Barron Radcliffe's single, I'm sorry, it was cut off before it was a double, but that ball was hit every bit as well, and Colin Hall has got Georgia Tech started. And Wiley, you and I were talking between innings, and the fact that Georgia Tech trails 3-1, but the way Court Rodig reacted after that strikeout, it really feels like, and the way Georgia Tech performed this year, it feels like Georgia Tech in that dugout is thinking, we're going to win this game, and you saw it right there, that confident swing, powering the ball into the gap from Colin Hall would certainly suggest that they are feeling confident even though they trail by 2 runs.
Oh, that's some of what we talked about in the open, Roddy, where these two teams are. Auburn has lost 10 of their last 14 games. Georgia Tech has won 10 of their last 14 ACC games. And on the whole, they've won 12 of their last 17. But when things are going well, you're saying, how are we going to win tonight? When things aren't going well, how are we going to lose tonight? And I'm not saying that's specific to Auburn or Georgia Tech, but that can be the way things go in baseball. It's such a momentum sport, not only within a game, but within a season. And it takes a lot of mental fortitude to kind of will yourself out of that.
You know, it's a lot of that's a confidence thing, and it's an approach thing, and I don't think you can say enough.
Ground ball right side. Bliss has it kick off his glove. Karam into right field. Hall will come around to score. And it's 3-2 now as Jackson Webb drives in a run.
That was a tough play at second base for Ryan Bliss. See him slide down there. It's going to kick off. I think it's almost certain that's going to be ruled as a base hit, and Jackson Webb is going to get the RBI. That was a tough play, but as I was saying, I don't think you can say enough about the effect that the coaching changes for Georgia Tech have made on this baseball team, particularly the addition of James Ramsey, who's taken over as hitting coach.
And Cam Turley trying to lay down a bunt. Fortunate for him, stays in the box.
But you can see it in the approach, and a lot of times teams take the personality of their head coach, and James Ramsey was a former first-round pick that embodied that grinder mentality. He was a guy with top 10-round talent, top 5-round talent that worked like he was going to go undrafted. I mean, he was a guy that always came out and played with his heart, and that's why Florida State fans absolutely love the guy, because of what he gave to that school, and he's brought that mentality here to Georgia Tech.
Ramsey in his first year as an assistant coach for Georgia Tech, as Turley bunts this one back towards the mound, and a throw on to first base. There's a sacrifice bunt. So that'll move Webb into scoring position for Nick Wilhite. And Roddy, the term that James Ramsey has come back to time and time again when describing his offense and his style of play is the word grit. And there are no two players in the starting 9 that better embody that grit than the one at second base and the one at the plate.
I'll tell you, there's no guy maybe in the history of the ACC that embodies that more than James Ramsey. He was one of those guys, and I was in school at the same time he was, so I saw him play against the Jackets a couple of times. He was one of those guys that if he was on your team, you loved him. But if he was on the other team, you were just like, God, will this guy leave, please? Because he was going to make you work for everything. He's going to play hard. He's going to be emotional. And he's a guy that you love to have on your side. He's been a great addition for Georgia Tech.
2012 National Player of the Year. He's less than 12 months removed from his last professional game as a player. Ball one on Nick Wilhite. But not often you've got a game, as we do tonight, that features a pair of third base coaches who were first-round picks.
Yeah. How many times does that happen over the course of the year?
And Wilhite hit by that pitch. He'll move up to first base. We'll hit more on Gabe Gross when he's back out there in the top of the fifth. But quite a lineup here as assistant coaches for both Auburn and Georgia Tech. And speaking of the lineup, Nick Wilhite turns it over as he takes this one off the toe. Ooh. At least you don't have to clip him tonight.
It's the first time toenail clippings have come up during Christmas broadcast. I guess you didn't actually bring up the clipping. Never mind.
Do you think that'll be the last time?
I hope so.
Sounds like a plan. Auburn's going to go to the bullpen. Steve Smith do a little bit of coaching with this freshman as he continues to mold this young staff. Tigers will go to an old general, Blake Shalacy. We'll tell you more about him when we come back. Auburn 3, Georgia Tech 2. Bottom of the fourth inning, Georgia Tech rallying here in the bottom of the fourth. And Xavier Curry, Friday night starters, got the backwards hat. He's loving it. They threw him up on the Jumbotron here at Russ Chandler Stadium. And Ronnie, I don't think his presence in the Tech dugout can be understated. Not only on Friday nights when it's all business for Zay, but in a midweek matchup. And see, has he earned himself some seeds from strength and conditioning coach Steve Tambora?
Yeah,
maybe.
You get out there and work for your team, you can get some seeds.
Well, here's Blake Shalacy, who all of a sudden has earned some opportunities with Auburn, not only because of injury, Ronnie, but because he has shown an ability to deliver on the mound. He gave up 4 runs in 3 2/3 innings against Georgia Tech, but you mentioned Court Rodig's line was misleading against North Carolina from what he actually did. Well, so is Blake Shalacy. In that meeting 2 weeks ago against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, Shalacy came on in the 5th inning, sat down the first 9 men. One time through the order, he was perfect. He'll spin and fire back to second, or bluff one rather. Jackson Webb, I'll tell you right now, he and Nick Wilhite are going to be primed and ready to read balls in the dirt, trying to pick up an extra 90 feet.
It's another thing Georgia Tech's been much more aggressive on this season, but you're exactly right about Shalacy. Misleading stat line, that 4-run outing against Georgia Tech, the most runs he's given up all year. Started to earn himself some time in SEC play as well, and Luke Waddell up at the plate is going to look to tie this ball game up.
Georgia Tech, 40 stolen bases on the year, has already surpassed last year's total of 37. And Shalacy's well aware of that. Bottom of the 4th inning, Auburn a 3-0 lead after 2. The Yellow Jackets scratched across a run in the 3rd. They've added another here in the 4th and seeking more. Nice spot. You got to love a guy like Shalacy, though. A 4-year program guy. Hasn't had many opportunities throughout his career to pitch. I mean, as we sit here, this is just his 11th appearance over the last 2 years at Auburn. But with injury comes opportunity. Not only do you have to lean on the freshmen, you also got to lean on some of the veterans who haven't always been at the top of the heap.
As a left-handed pitcher, you always have to be ready to go. Coach is always looking for that specialist, and Shalacy's able to continue to put together good starts. He'll see himself used more and more.
Shot foul. Luke Waddell. Spoke to Luke last week about this, Ronnie. Asked about, where did you play before the infield, moving from second to short earlier this year? He said, well, in Little League, I was about 9, 10 years old. I pitched some. In the dirt, Webb takes off for third, and he's going to be safe at third base. Throw beat him. Thought that might have been a little too aggressive.
I certainly thought so, too. Usually you wanted to get at least outside of the frame of the catcher's body, but you see the slide in, the field of the ball. I don't think that the tag ever got to him.
Yeah,
good job by Webb. Yeah, sliding to the back part of the bag, and Julian over at third base kind of went to that front corner. Webb's foot went to the back as that one. Georgia Tech's aggressiveness paying off.
Payoff pitch floated to left, going back. Ward will make the catch deep in the corner, but that sac fly will be deep enough to tie the game. As Jackson Webb, thanks to the wild pitch, able to come home on that deep fly to left.
Sometimes if you're a base runner, you have to toe the line a little bit of that aggressiveness. You have to push the envelope. Jackson Webb did it, and it pays dividends. Good on on Luke Waddell for driving that ball to the outfield and allowing Jackson Webb to score, but that was created by Jackson Webb reading the ball in the dirt, being aggressive, getting to third base, forcing Auburn to be perfect. They were not, and Georgia Tech gets a run out of it to tie this ball game.
Goldberg pops up the first pitch. That last note on Luke Waddell. So I said, well, what'd you throw when you were a pitcher? He said, well, my hands are too small to throw anything but a fastball. And so when I looked for a breaking ball, my coach told me, just put it in your palm and throw a palm ball.
Did you ask him how that went for him?
Yeah, he said he moved to second base shortly after.
Fair.
1-1 on Goldberg, but, Roddy, I really do believe this, and I think anyone who's watched college sports especially, but really sports in general, that belief is almost, if not half the battle, 3/4 of the battle. You got a Georgia Tech team that has a sense of belief as Goldberg bangs this one back through the box. Wilhite, a big turnaround second. There's a throwback behind him. They'll get it standing. This Georgia Tech team really has every expectation in the world that they're going to come back and take the lead. Dug out of a 3-0 hole 2 weeks ago against Auburn.
A good way to do that is to get hits with 2 outs, productive outs, and to bring up Kyle McCann with 2 outs and 2 runners on in the inning.
And this big matchup here, Kyle McCann, midseason All-American according to D1Baseball.com, facing the lefty Blake Shalacy, who's trying to keep this game tied now. And Mack, did he offer? Not enough. There's ball 1. Bobby Valentine made the case, Roddy, a couple years ago, wanting to take the power away from umpires on those types of plays, saying if you offer at it at all, it's a strike.
I don't know if I like that.
Well, now the counter, though, of course, was that he said move the strike zone up from below the knee, above the knee. So that was kind of the ebb back in favor of the hitter, which is how it's written in the rule book. 2-0. And I think I get some of that. I mean, only because it is such an arbitrary decision to say whether or not a hitter offered at a pitch.
Yeah, a lot of time these umpires
I mean, there's no rule. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, you're really just kind of, is that a swing? Sure.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a strike.
It's one of those, you know it when you see it. But does everyone know it? It's always been one of those arbitrary things that, you don't love about how it's handled. It's not like that third base umpire has a great view of it either.
14 homers, 42 RBI for Kyle McCann. It's only mid-April. And this one yanked into right field. That's a base hit. Nick Wilhite racing home He will give Georgia Tech the lead on an RBI single from Kyle McCann as the Jackets pull ahead for the first time this evening.
So often this year, Kyle McCann's done it with the long ball. Here with 2 strikes, he does it with a line drive into right field. And it's just what the doctor ordered as Georgia Tech strung together a number of hits. Started by Colin Hall. Jackson Webb's pitched in with a hit. And then taking advantage of a hit by pitch, a single by Michael Goldberg. And a sac fly by Luke Waddell in there as well. Push across now 3 runs in this inning.
And the first pitch to Barron Radcliffe in the right-hand hitter's batter's box. There's 1-0 on Radcliffe. You want to know something fascinating?
Always.
Kyle McCann with those 43 RBI, he's already cleared Joey Bart's total from last season by 5. Joey had 16 homers and 38 RBI. Kyle McCann's got 14 and now 43 runs driven in.
That was one of the biggest questions coming into this year. How would Georgia Tech replace the production of Joey Bart? And Kyle McCann has just stepped in and probably been one of the biggest surprises in college baseball, especially the start he got off to. I think everyone expected him to be good, but you just didn't know how he would respond handling the everyday catcher's duty. But he's actually gotten better, and I think being locked in on a pitch-in, pitch-out basis has helped him at the plate as well.
Tapper up the third base line. That'll be a foul ball. 2 balls and 2 strikes now. Radcliffe 1 for 1 tonight. A walk and a run driven in. Bottom of the 4th inning. It has been a slog. We haven't had a real quick half inning all night. The exception being the bottom of the 2nd when Tech went down 1-2-3. But we've had a runner in scoring position, Roddy, in every inning but 1. And that would have been that bottom of the 2nd. Every half inning, I should say. Time called by Matt Scheffler behind the dish. Georgia Tech started this game 0 for 8. And Radcliffe skies this one high down the right field line. Bliss trying to find the ball, but it's the right fielder Williams who comes in behind him to make the play. But Georgia Tech scores 3 runs on 4 hits and take their first lead of the night, 4-3 after 4. A good look at the One Atlantic Center here in Midtown Atlanta. 4-3, Georgia Tech on top of Auburn. Yellow Jackets so far in 2019. That's a pretty compelling resume there, Roddy. 24-12, a few more losses than you might expect, but when you play a schedule like Georgia Tech, which is the 8th toughest in the country, somewhat understandable. But you know what, to be honest with you, Roddy, I think the thing that jumps out at me the most at anything is that last line, 9-7 against the RPI top 25.
I think it's a really strong resume. Yeah, absolutely. You got 9 wins against the top 25. You're leading the ACC Coastal right now. You've been really good. You've won 5 consecutive ACC series. RPI in the top 16. That's a really strong tournament resume and may have Georgia Tech in a situation where they're hosting a regional come playoff time. And that could be big for the Jackets. It's been a while since Georgia Tech's hosted a regional.
Well, quite frankly, it's been 2 years since Tech has been in a regional. Missed it each of the last 2 seasons. First multi-year drought for Georgia Tech baseball since 1983-84, which coincides with the 2nd and 3rd seasons of Jim Morris's tenure at Georgia Tech. So the dip, and now perhaps a bounce back up, as Rhoda, we saw, was awfully fired up at the end of the top of the 4th. Maybe a little too gassed up here. He had to be on the bench for a while as he tries to limber up.
It's his first time in this game pitching with the lead. He's behind 3-0.
Here he finds the zone. But Auburn, by the same token, a group that's dealt with some real tough injuries. Georgia Tech can relate to that. A couple years ago, they lost two of their weekend starters before the season started. Leadoff walk to Edouard Julien. And that team wound up finishing with a losing record. So I think you have to commend Auburn for what they've been able to accomplish despite having to somewhat pitch it together. I heard Butch Thompson speaking with Andy Burcham on their weekly podcast earlier this week, Roddy. And Thompson threw out the number that they've been outscored by about a little less than 20 runs in their 15 ACC games. They've won 8 of them.
And that's a testament to this team and how they battle and how much talent they have. So the injuries certainly come into play in a significant way for many teams over the course of the season. So much about baseball is how many arms do you have healthy when it comes down to it, and how have you been able to develop the young talent over the course of the season.
You look at that team last year, advanced to the Super Regionals. Obviously, you had Casey Mize, first overall pick by the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. But behind him, you had Davis Daniel, right-hander, who went toe-to-toe in that Omaha trip deciding series finale between Florida and Auburn in the Super. He left it all out there on the field in an extra inning loss. Connor Davis at the plate. Court has come out here in the 5th and fired only 2 strikes among his first 8 pitches. Julien aboard at first after his leadoff walk. There he goes. Pitch is foul tipped into the mid-turtle. He's thrown out to second base. A moment too late. Austin Wilhite giving a look towards the dugout like, hey, think about reviewing that one.
And if Turley doesn't double clutch behind the plate, if he's able to bring that out of his glove cleanly right off the bat, then they nail Julien at second base. We're going to get another look. You saw that sort of second clutch, gets it out. It's a bang-bang play. Couldn't quite tell there. Maybe worth looking at. Danny Hall's usually pretty aggressive in these situations with that, but has not moved from the top step of the dugout yet.
So 2-2 on Davis. A little squibber towards second base. Wilhite gobbles it up and unfurls on to first. Julien moves over to third. By the way, nice call there at second base, I think, by Vic Carell. That's Vic Carell Jr., by the way. His father, a catcher in the major leagues. Long-time Atlanta Brave, Cincinnati Red.
I'm glad that wasn't trivia tonight.
See, in some ways, does that mean trivia is even more difficult than that?
Oh, good point. Yeah, I don't know. I never get it anyway, so stick around for our award-winning, world-renowned trivia in the 7th inning.
Has the world renowned it?
Someone in the world has renowned it, yes.
Good.
So I think we can say it's
all right.
world-renowned.
Works for me. 1-0 here on Matt Scheffler. Sent a ground ball to short twice into a double play in the first. Reached on a throwing error from Luke Waddell in the third. Tying run 90 feet away with 1 out. And Court Rhoda continuing to fall behind.
He was cruising there for a little while. Should get a look at Gabe Gross, third base coach for Auburn. He has to be pleased with the way his team has responded in this inning.
Swing and a miss there. What do we say about fastball counts, Roddy?
Don't exist. Although Gabe Gross was pretty good in some fastball counts in his day, wasn't he?
He was good in about every count. 15th overall in 2001, 7 years in the bigs. Speaking of culture changes, now in his second season as the volunteer coach. Or excuse me, as the assistant coach, head hitting coach for Auburn. And he's a guy who has really jump-started this Auburn program. A former Tiger himself.
They've had some good ones down there on the plains.
I can think of one playing third base just up the street. Josh Donaldson.
I can think of one longtime pitcher for the Braves who was a do-it-all Auburn Tiger, Tim Hudson. Huddy.
I was at the game. First, Rodig with the infield playing in, a 2-2 pitch. Missed. I remember Tim Hudson throwing, I think it was a complete game shutout against the Blue Jays. They hit the 2-run homer to win the game 2-0.
Yeah. He's the man.
Payoff pitch. Clobbered deep to left, but well foul. That's the second one of those.
Scheffler crushed that ball down the line. See if he can refocus here. This will be a big out for Rodig if he's able to get it, especially by strikeout. Keep that runner at third base.
Instead, a hard hit grounder infield backed up now, and they'll trade the out for the run. Auburn ties it up.
Good response from Auburn manufacturing a run. Sorry about that, Wiley. Able to get on via a walk, the stolen base by Julian, who advanced the runner. Connor Davis does by hitting the ball to the right side, and then Scheffler putting the ball in play. It's a great job of just playing small ball, being aggressive on the base pass, manufacturing a run when you need it most.
Here's Rankin Woolley. Ambush one's down the third base line and fair. Woolley's got extra bases. Picked up in the corner by Hall. And that'll be a 2-out double for Rankin Woolley, who's now 2 for 3 tonight. Returning to his hometown, Atlanta, Georgia.
Absolutely laces this one down the line, just past the outstretched glove of Jackson Webb, who was actually playing pretty close to the line, but able to get past him into the outfield, and that is going to prompt pitching change from Coach Danny Hall.
Well, Will Holland due up, a chance to give Auburn the lead. We're tied at 4. Court Rodig delivers 2 2/3 innings of relief, but it's Jonathan Hughes coming to the mound for the Yellow Jackets in the top of the 5th. Top of the 5th inning, tied at 4. Auburn with a go-ahead run at second base. Jonathan Hughes checking in from the Yellow Jacket bullpen, replacing Court Rodig. And for Hughes, over his last 4 appearances, Roddy, he's got an ERA below 4, a 1-0 record in 7 innings. But he's given up 11 hits and walked 3, and he's kind of tight-roped out of trouble at times. There's also been times when he hadn't tight-roped out of trouble, and he's gotten bit by it.
One of those times that he didn't have very much trouble at all was in the game at Auburn back on April 2nd. Pitched 3 innings, gave up 4 hits during that one, struck out 4, did not give up an earned run. Was able to get through that outing in only 36 pitches, so familiar with this lineup. He's going to be asked to get one of the most talented hitters in the SEC and in the country out, even though Will Holland may have struggled a bit this year.
And they're familiar with him. That's what the Tigers are saying to themselves right now. A chance to seize the lead right back. They led this game 3-0. Georgia Tech scored a run in the 3rd, 3 in the 4th to take a 1-run lead. Auburn's tied it here in the 5th, and there's ball 1 to Will Holland. So far tonight, 0 for 1 with a flyout and a walk and a run score. Rankin Woolley, who was hitless against Tech 2 weeks ago, has got 2 hits tonight, stands at second base. And Hughes, his first 2 offerings, breaking balls that miss away.
Like him going to back-to-back breaking balls there. Holland has chased a couple of pitches tonight, but showing good discipline on this one.
This time a fastball misses low, 3-0. Hughes dealt with walk issues throughout the last couple of seasons. Over the last 2 years, he walked 40 while striking out just 31 and just over 40 innings. And there's 4 that missed the zone to begin this appearance here in the bottom of the 5th. And for the Yellow Jackets, who lead the ACC in fewest walks per nine and are 29th nationally, tonight, Tech has now issued 5 walks. And of Auburn's 4 runs, 3 of them reached base via the free pass, including 1 already in this inning. So now the lefty Stephen Williams at the plate.
Auburn, that's encouraging. It means you've been taking advantage of the mistakes that Georgia Tech has made.
Missed inside, ball 1. Second round pick of the Baltimore Orioles out of high school. 68th overall. Right-hander trying to get Tech out of the jam. There's a strike. But I go back to Auburn. You know, obviously the walks have helped. Some have been more blue-collar than others. You had Judd Ward and Will Holland just a moment ago draw a pair of 4-pitch walks, but Will Holland and Ryan Bliss saw 9 and 10 pitches. But the reason they've been able to cash those things in is because they had a great approach with 2 strikes. I mean, that has been, in my mind, difference in the game.
You have to be impressed by this entire lineup's approach. They battled all night. And over the course of the season, that 4-run mark has been a really important one for Auburn. 22-4 on the season when scoring 4 or more runs. 2-8 when scoring 3 runs or fewer. Obviously, it's always tough to score or to win when you score that few runs, but the fact that they've been so successful once they hit that 4+ runs is big for this Auburn team to reach that threshold.
On the flip side, the line for Georgia Tech has been the same, 4 runs or more. Ground ball sent to first, gathered by McCann, steps atop the bag, and Stephen Williams grounds out to first to end the inning. But Auburn with a run on 1 hit. They leave 2. We go to the bottom of the 5th, all tied. Bottom of the 5th inning, Georgia Tech and Auburn tied at 4. Second baseman Austin Wilhite leading off for the Yellow Jackets. Wasn't always that way. Austin began his Yellow Jacket career starting at short, but on March 17th, the middle infield was flip-flopped for Austin Wilhite and Luke Waddell, and look at those numbers.
Yeah, those stats combined of Waddell and Wilhite. And you know, it's funny because you would think the performance at the plate isn't going to change much by switching positions, and if you ask those guys, as you did, they say it doesn't have much to do with it, but I mean, it's hard to argue with the results at the plate and in the field, honestly.
And I think some of that, like you said, both Austin and Luke kind of scoffed at the notion that would impact their offensive performance. I think they're both plenty comfortable at either middle infield position. Some of that, of course, is Luke dealing with a knee sprain in the first half of the season. Austin had a starting streak of over 125 games snapped due to a stomach illness that kept him out of a couple of games. So part of that's just getting in your routine. And the other is guys get hot, guys get cold, and just so happened to coincide with that position switch. That also marks the stretch of which Georgia Tech was 1-3 in the conference on March 17th, and they've rattled off 10 wins in their last 14 ACC games. And a 5-pitch walk, rather, to Austin Wilhite. Another leadoff walk. Roddy, we've seen far too many of those. Jackets get the leadoff runner aboard for the second straight inning. Tied at 4 here in the bottom of the 5th.
And this is the guy coming up to the plate that was able to reach base in the last inning for Georgia Tech with that double to right center field. He motored around the bases like the hot rod that we just heard go behind the Russ Chandler Stadium.
Is that your Uber Eats?
Yeah.
I saw you run out of there.
Oh, man, I was going to pick up my Jimmy John's.
That's what freaky fast sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Strike count here on Colin Hall. Runner bluffs a move towards second. Wilhite darts back to first.
I like the bluff over there at first base by Austin Wilhite. Make him think about it a little bit. Typically you see a throw over after that.
Blake Shalacy on the mound. Bounces one in the dirt.
It's a long stare down over at first base to Austin Wilhite. Make sure he's not going anywhere before throwing that one in the dirt. Just a little bit of distraction there provided by Wilhite at first base, and Colin Hall will take advantage of it if Shalacy is able to hang one.
And Austin, 10 for 10 with stolen bases this year, Roddy. He has the most stolen bases for a Yellow Jacket since Daniel Spingola, who had 15 in 2014.
Georgia Tech just has not consistently been an aggressive team. They've had guys that can run.
They've also done a fine job of picking their spots this year. Tech 40 of 42 on the bases. The only base runner to be caught this year is Nick Wilhite. He's 5 for 7. Everyone else perfect, including his twin brother Austin, who's 10 for 10. Which is funny because you really can't tell the two apart, so why wouldn't they both just steal at the same stolen base rate?
Yeah, and also Nick Wilhite's the guy is the one that you would think would be more fleet of foot as being the center fielder, but Austin's got the crown of stolen base king in that house.
You think there's any chance older brother's letting little brother outsteal him?
Oh, for sure. Or outsteal him? Oh, no, not at all.
That's what I'm saying.
I thought you were going to say if Austin has let Nick know about it. I would imagine that every time they go to the dinner table together, Nick is swiping something and saying, hey, another stolen bag for me.
Sprayed into left field. Austin Wilhite moves up to third on a single to left. You rarely see that. And a big high five from James Ramsey, third base coach. Dan Jaffe at first opts for the fist bump.
Colin Hall at the plate coming through again, and Austin Wilhite gets a great read on this, knows it's through the hole, and you get Judd Ward in left field not really charging it, letting the ball come to him, and Wilhite just motors around, no doubt about it, makes the decision early, swipes the extra bag to get a runner on third with nobody out.
Well, that's going to do it for Blake Shalacy. 2/3 of an inning. He gives up 3 hits. No runs yet, but he's responsible for Austin Wilhite at third, Colin Hall at first, and it's Ryan Watson checking in for Auburn when we come back. Bottom of the 5th inning. New arm on for the Auburn Tigers, the right-hander Ryan Watson. ERA a few ticks above 5, making his 13th appearance of the season. And for Watson, all have come out of the bullpen. He's got a frisbee slider, a sinking fastball.
Yeah, it's been used a lot for Auburn this season. one of the most reliable guys in the Auburn bullpen at not providing those free passes. Worked a couple of times over the weekend against Texas A&M. In the first game that he worked, on the 13th, pitched 2/3 of an inning, gave up a hit, did not give up a run, and then the second one only 1/3 of an inning, so still fairly fresh here only a few days after he last worked.
Roddy, this has been an awfully tight game. Hadn't been crisp by any means.
Use a good word to describe this game. Slogging is how I would describe it. We've had a number of pitching changes, but you're right. It's been back and forth, and it's been some high-pressure situations, this certainly being one of them. Ryan Watson's going to inherit a runner on third, a runner on first, nobody out with Jackson Webb, the third baseman, who's 1 for 2 on the day. He's going to try and help Georgia Tech to take the lead once again.
We've seen 12 hits, 10 walks, and a hit by pitch. So base runners littering the infield here so far on this Tuesday night, a top 25 matchup. Midtown Atlanta. Both these teams trying to solidify those postseason resumes as we get closer and closer to Selection Monday at the end of May. Jackson Webb takes ball one. Webb 1 for 2 tonight. RBI single. And Webby, as they call him, getting another start at third base. And this one lined and fair into the left field corner, now bobbled into the bullpen. And that's going to be a dead ball. They will send the runner home, Colin Hall, and Jackson Webb will stay at second base. Ward lost it, and it bounced into the bullpen. A double for Jackson Webb, scores 2 Yellow Jackets.
What the piece of hitting by Jackson Webb, lining this one down the line. Let's see what happens to Judd Ward out in left field. Great job getting it just past the glove of Julian at third base, and then that ball just bounces, kind of rolls up the fence, takes a weird hop on Ward, goes into the bullpen, and now they're going to chat about whether or not they keep Colin Hall at third base or not.
Well, the question is going to be if that ball hits Judd Ward, then you can make the argument that, okay, you can bring Hall around to third, but if it didn't hit Ward at all, that's a ground rule double, and he's got to stay at third base.
No, that one definitely hit Ward and bounced out, and I think you're going to get an explanation from David Savage behind the plate as to why Colin Hall was sent home.
He's talking with Butch Thompson, head coach for Auburn, who's in his 18th year as a coach in the SEC, Roddy. I asked him, what's changed the most when it comes to the SEC over that time? He said, well, it was a league that when I joined, I thought there's no way it could get any better, and it's gotten better. And that's the truth for all of college baseball here. And now Coach Danny Hall is going to make his case saying, why can't my Jackson Webb move on to third base?
I don't know what the explanation is going to be there, but I think both coaches are fighting for one less base on one side and one extra base on the other side. I think Colin Hall certainly was being waved and was nearly at third when that ball bounced over. Jackson Webb, on the other hand, likely would not have made it to third base anyway. Kyle McCann's just looking.
Yeah, he's engaged.
He's just happy. He's just happy that his team's back in the lead by a couple runs.
All right, so runner aboard at second. Still nobody out. Georgia Tech with a 6-4 lead over Auburn. By the way, David Savage handling that professionally. He's been to 3 College World Series as an umpire. And now here is Cam Turley. Savage, a former Florida Gator. Graduated from USF. Been umpiring college baseball since 1991. For context, Cameron Turley He's a 1998 product.
Oof. Man.
It's early. The catcher for the Yellow Jackets asked to lay down a sack bunt his last time up and got the job done. Haven't seen him square yet. 2-0.
Cameron Turley looking for his first base hit of the season. How big would it be for him to come through here for Georgia Tech?
Let's get that
scoring
first,
another run.
Get that first RBI, that first hit all out of the way. Webb aboard at second after his double just inside the chalk down the left field line. 3-0. Well, these are similar problems to what we've seen from Auburn over these last couple of weeks. And it really coincides with the loss of Jack Owen, who was lost 4 weeks ago. He was such a bedrock for the Auburn pitching staff. He and Davis Daniel. Runner takes off from second, pitches a called strike. Jackson Webb got a great jump. Didn't look like Watson was paying any attention to it.
Well, so often pitchers are creatures of habit. Watch, Jackson Webb has been counting the number of looks to second base every single pitch that Watson has thrown. Pitchers get into a habit. You'll often see, especially at second base, they'll look once, look twice, then go to the plate consistently. So after that second look or that first look, whatever the rhythm is, as a batter or as a base runner, you get aggressive, and then when they start to go to the plate, you take off, and Webb did it perfectly there.
And nobody preaches that more than third base coach James Ramsey. I mean, he did that regularly as a player.
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge part of his game. Turley takes ball 4 inside. Second walk of the inning. Jackets have sent 4 men to the plate, and none have been retired. Jackson Webb, who began his career at Georgia Tech in 2016, wasn't expected to get a lot of playing time, so he transferred to Gulf Coast State. First team all-conference. Then moved on to UCF, where he got 26 starts and 92 at-bats. And then transferred back to home here in Atlanta.
All comes full circle.
On the outside corner, Nick Wilhite at the plate. Runners on the corners. They call him two-bar. You know why, Roddy?
Cannot say that I know why.
0-1 count. Tries laying on a bunt, offered at it, strike 2. He produces music. A lot of hip-hop beats.
Okay.
And he's been doing that for a while now. Got really into it once he got to college. And so occasionally he'll be asked to, lay down some raps on the beats. And Nick, who's a soft-spoken guy, could never get past 2 bars.
A couple bars. I got bars, but barely. Barely bars.
I got 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like half a Kit Kat. All with 2 strikes.
That's pretty solid there.
I got more than just 2 bars, Roddy.
Oh, that's true. If you get a full Kit Kat, you got 4 bars.
You're aware we've still got 4 mornings to go here. We can't go too far off the rails yet.
Oh, it's still a close game.
Watson ready. And a high chopper. Willie's going to try and come home. Now he'll throw back behind Webb at third, and he is out. Rankin Woolley. Former LSU Tiger, speaking of moving around a little bit. Boy, he played that ball perfectly.
There's an absolute strike to first base. It's a third base. Jackson Webb just got a little too aggressive over at third. Maybe he thought that ball was going to get over the head of Woolley at first, but again, throws an absolute strike over to third and is able to get the lead runner Webb and line up Auburn, where if they're able to get a ground ball hit hard at one of the infielders, they're going to be able to turn two and get out of this inning.
So putout goes 3-5. Here's Luke Waddell. 0 for 2 tonight. He's reached in 14 straight games. Trying to drive in another run. Sac fly his last time out. Ryan Watson, Auburn, Alabama native. Inherited a couple of runners. They've all come in to score. Trying to strand two of his own here in the fifth. Knee-high strike. Perfect spot. Waddell, former Tiger at Loveland High School. Shortstop Will Holland went darting behind Cameron Turley at second base.
Yeah. I think the message has been relayed to Watson on the mound that varied looks are what's needed. Let's pay attention to that guy at second, not let it happen again.
Fouled away. Waddell stays alive. Watson, 6'5", 215 pounds. Junior, gotta love the frame he's got. Waddell sprays one in left center field. Turley rounding third will score, and Georgia Tech leads 7-4. Pretty piece of hitting there for Luke, who's reached in 15 straight games.
Lines this one with a shortstop's head into center field, and Jackson Webb getting caught at third base looms so large there that would have scored likely a couple of runs for Georgia Tech, depending on what happened on the rest of that play. But again, Tech taking advantage of a couple of walks by Auburn, both of which have come around to score, putting across 3 in the bottom of this fifth inning.
So 7-4, Georgia Tech leading the Tigers. Here's Michael Goldberg, 7th man to bat in the inning. Midweek matchup, Yellow Jackets 8-1 in the midweek this year. Their only loss last week to top 5 Georgia. Auburn 6-3, but they've lost 3 in a row. Ball one on Goldberg, who's been on base 3 times tonight, a couple walks and a single.
This will be Georgia Tech's able to hold another notch on the belt for Georgia Tech, another top 25 victory if this result holds. Auburn gets no break going forward as they go to Ole Miss this weekend. A top 25 team.
A lot of baseball left to be played. And quite frankly, Roddy, I'm not convinced who's coming out on top here tonight until we see some more stable pitching.
That's true. That's a good
Both
point.
teams have issued far too many walks. Auburn issuing 2 in this inning alone that have led to a couple of runs. They've issued a total of 6 tonight. Georgia Tech has issued 5. Pickoff throw back to first.
Both teams have really responded at the plate. And Georgia Tech took the lead by 1 at the bottom of the last inning by plating 3 runs, and then Auburn was able to respond with a run in the top of the 5th. Now Georgia Tech's able to push across 3 in this one with the threat of more.
Goldberg lays down a bunt. Watson's only play is to first, and Nick Wilhite was darting home, and as soon as he saw Watson field it, he went immediately back to third. So that goes down as a 1-3.
There's a couple of lefties in the bullpen, Kyle Gray and Bailey Horn for Auburn. And it's a great idea there by Michael Goldberg. Unfortunately, the one place you can't bunt it in that situation is right back to the pitcher, or otherwise you get either a run scoring or a run scoring and a base hit out of it.
And I beg your pardon, that actually is going to go down as a, excuse me, Rob.
Yeah.
Go down as a sack bunt.
Got to be Kyle McCann that has to do the damage here. And you're right, because that runner was able to advance to second base, you get a sack bunt out of it. A couple runners in scoring position, and a free pass for Kyle McCann.
Yeah, and unfortunately in that spot for Goldberg, that's going to take the bat out of Kyle McCann's hand. One thing it does do, Roddy, is it gets Kyle McCann closer and closer to the school record for intentional walks in a single season, which is currently held by Mark Teixeira.
Pretty good.
Pretty good company. He actually just passed Teixeira on the home run list with his 37th blast last week against North Carolina. And Steve Smith with Barron Radcliffe at the plate. Another left-handed hitter is going to at least talk it over for a moment and see how Ryan Watson's feeling and decide what they want to do here.
I'd be surprised if they don't go to the bullpen here. It's kind of been the theme of the night, particularly with the left-hander Barron Radcliffe up. They decide not to, though, and keep the righty on the mound. Let him take on the left-handed power hitter Barron Radcliffe.
Well, I think at some point as well, you got to be able to let some guys grow and develop. That's something Butch Thompson talked about when I spoke with him about. If there's any positive for some of the injuries they've dealt with, they have an opportunity for their program to mature early. But Kyle McCann, by the way, that is his 14th intentional walk. The single season record is 17 by Mark Teixeira in 2000.
What was Tech's the number 5 pick in the draft that year?
Number 5 in the 2001 draft. Gabe Gross, third base coach for Auburn, was the 15th overall pick in that same draft. Also included Richard Lewis, who up until a couple weeks ago was the most recent Yellow Jacket hit for the cycle. He was the 40th overall pick in 01. And Tristan English hit for the cycle a little over a week ago. All one on Barron Radcliffe.
That was a good draft, man. Joe Maurer was the number 1 overall pick. Mark Pryor went number 2.
Yeah, Maurer turned down the Knowles for a chance to go under center. 38th overall pick was David Wright, a Georgia Tech commit. Never made it to campus, though. Check swing. Did he go? No. 2 balls and a strike. Bases loaded. And a dangerous hitter at the plate. Cleanup man, Barron Radcliffe, who's 1 for 2 tonight with a walk. Nick Wilhite at third, Waddell at second, McCann at first. Watson a deep breath. Swing and a miss. Oh, he almost came unglued there. Fastball count, Roddy, doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't, but that was a pitch that Barron Radcliffe had to offer at. He certainly did. Eddie connected with that ball. I think it would have landed out somewhere on Fraternity Row back behind the right field fence of Georgia Tech, but a little too big a swing perhaps from Barron Radcliffe.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Infield pull to the right side. Swing and a miss. He doubled up on it, and Ryan Watson, the junior for Auburn, takes down Barron Radcliffe to leave him loaded. Georgia Tech scores 3 runs, their largest lead of the night, 7-4 after 5. Georgia Tech, their largest lead of the night, but this one far from over. Auburn has had a runner in scoring position in each of the first 5 innings at the plate. There's a look at the Tigers' tournament resume. Still a solid one, 24-12 against a top 15 schedule. That number, hard to imagine it going anywhere but further up the charts on the strength of schedule column. In 6-7 against the RPI top 25, I suppose the only thing you could really critique there is you're hoping for a better Marquis Series win than Tennessee. Although with that said, Tennessee just took 2 or 3 from top 5 Georgia. So, I'm not sure there are any low-quality SEC Series wins. Yeah,
Tennessee was number 21 when that series happened. They're number 22 right now. This is a talented baseball team. The thing about Auburn is you look at their last 5 SEC series, they're going to play. They get Ole Miss at home this weekend. That's the number 17 team in the country. They go to Vanderbilt, and then it's Alabama, Georgia, and at LSU. 4 of those 5 are against top 17 teams in the country. That is tough, and so you're going to have to turn this around really quickly, or that resume, even though the strength of schedule is going to be there, is quickly going to tilt towards one that doesn't have you making a regional unless you're able to go on a run in the SEC tournament. But right now, if they're able to string together some wins, a couple series wins, and they could be hosting a regional very easily.
I think one thing that you're always afforded, 3-2 pounded foul, in the SEC or the ACC for that matter, is the opportunity to play your way into the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, every team has that, I suppose, with the conference tournament, but more than just a week. If you win, you'll be in. Fouled away again. Boy, Ryan Bliss, I have loved his at-bats tonight, Roddy. He's gotten 2 strikes on him each of the first 2 times. Again, here in his 3rd plate appearance, he's got a double and a walk to his credit. This guy, he's going to wreak havoc, I think, for a lot of opposing pitchers over the next several years. But Hughes gets him with a high fastball. And he gets the leadoff man.
Yeah, this is certainly a guy that at some point in his career is likely going to be at the top of the lineup for Auburn, but Jonathan Hughes goes up the ladder with a high fastball. Bliss swings right through it, and Hughes has the first out of this 6th inning.
Georgia Tech 7, Auburn 4. And a chopper over to Kyle McCann. Says, you know something, I can handle those.
I think it's the first action we've really seen from Kyle McCann over there at first base. The everyday catcher for the Jackets is seeing some time first today with Tristan English getting the night off, and I think it's the first ground ball that's been hit to him.
Kason Howell. Auburn has not had an inning where they haven't put a runner at second base or all the way around. Danger of a 1-2-3 showing here in the 6th. And Hughes a strike away. Tight breaking ball that time. Challenged him in. Well, he looks like a different pitcher than what we saw there in the 5th inning, Rod. He came in and walked Will Holland on 4 pitches and fell behind Stephen Williams before he grounded out to end the inning. Looked a lot more comfortable there on the hill here in the 6th.
Yeah, and you get a strikeout the way he did against Bliss and then a quick out and gives you that confidence, but Howell there Case and Howell able to just put a little bit of a wrench in the plans of the perfect inning that Jonathan Hughes had in mind as he lined that one in the left.
7th hit of the night for Auburn. They're 5th with 2 strikes. That one leaked a little too far over the plate from where Hughes wanted to put it. And Howell able to take advantage. He's now 2 for 4 tonight. First pitch strike on Edouard Julien. 0 for 2. Auburn coming off a 43-win season a year ago. Their most victories since 2010 when they also had 43. And then before that, you got to go all the way back to 1999 when they made Super Regionals. And last year they made Super Regionals as well. It was their first Super Regional appearance since 99, and they got a win. First one in school history. High bouncer. Wilhite. Perfect throw to first. And that ends the 6th. 2-out single, all Auburn can muster. We go to the bottom of the 6th. It's Georgia Tech 7, Auburn 4. You're watching the ACC on ESPN. North Avenue in the Varsity here in Midtown Atlanta. Georgia Tech 7, Auburn 4. Wiley Ballard and Roddy Jones with you, coming from the corner of First and Fowler. There's a look at Steve Smith, pitching coach for the Auburn Tigers. And they've been dealt quite a tough hand here with the Auburn pitching staff. Not only do you lose the first overall pick in Casey Mize from a year ago. Here's called strike 1 on Austin Wilhite, who led off the 5th with a walk, part of a 3-run frame. But entering this season, you've got Davis Daniel poised to assume the reins of Friday night starter. Well, he throws 2 innings on opening night, and his season comes to a rapid close, at least for the time being. Wilhite, an ambush on a missile in the left center, stumbles around first base. Georgia Tech now with their 9th hit. So Davis Daniel goes down on opening night. Then you lose Jack Owen 4 weeks ago on the first weekend of SEC play. That's a guy who, to this point, Roddy, has thrown 29 innings and 3 starts with a 0.31 ERA. And so you're talking about, I mean, that's 3 big losses. Now, fortunately for Auburn, they still have Tanner Burns, a preseason All-SEC selection. Colin Hall at the plate, 2 for 3, couple runs scored.
But Wiley, that kind of creates a domino effect when you have those pitchers go out, particularly the starters, because then you're having to shuffle guys around, whether it's a weekday guy having to move to the weekend, maybe a bullpen guy, a long reliever, or a setup man that has to become that starter. And then it's a domino effect down the line. Guys are in positions that they hadn't necessarily been thought of taking those positions in the preseason. So it's a domino effect that can kind of create a situation where mentally you start to struggle and you think, wow, maybe what we're doing here isn't going to work. It isn't what we were supposed to be doing at the very beginning of the season. So it's tough. It's tough for any team that's struggling, particularly when you get the struggles both from an injury standpoint and at the plate that they've had from some of their key guys.
And after that pitch, Roddy, Auburn has thrown 124 of them tonight. 62 strikes, 62 balls.
It's tough to win games against any team like that, particularly a top 25 team like Georgia Tech and the teams that they see in the SEC on a week-in, week-out basis. But you walk that number of hitters and throw that number of balls, you're going to walk hitters. And when you do that, it doesn't take much. put a crooked number on the board.
Jackets have drawn 15 walks over the last game and a half. Sunday against Boston College. There's called strike 2. They had 9, and tonight they've got 7, so 16 walks. But the good news for Auburn, Jack Owen anticipating he could throw a couple innings on Saturday afternoon against Ole Miss in the series finale. He's got a bullpen tomorrow. Swing and a miss. Down goes Hall. One more look at this pitch.
Yeah. Colin Hall just upset. I think he realized that was a better pitch than one he should have swung through. An off-speed pitch on the outside corner. Upsetted himself that he wasn't able to get the bat on that.
Here's Jackson Webb. He's doubled in back-to-back games. That runs Jackson's season total in doubles to 2, Roddy. Sneaky power.
100% increase.
Pick-off throw checking on Austin Wilhite. So that's the good news on Jack Owen. Latest report on Davis Daniel is that he's targeting a return for the first weekend of May, and not a moment too soon as Auburn hosts the Crimson Tide that weekend. So the bottom line is here, Roddy, in my mind, Auburn has got the talent to where if they can tread water, which is not going to be easy with Ole Miss and Vanderbilt due up, but if they can find a way just to, I mean, quite frankly, just avoid being swept, and you're 10-11 in the league, you've got Alabama and Georgia at home, you could make some serious hay and get hot in May, which, as we've seen, getting hot in May not only allows you to play in June, but you can continue to stay hot all the way into the postseason. You know, recently we saw that with Virginia. The year they won the national title, they were banged up. That was a team that was within one game of not making the tournament at all. And they go on a run to win the national title.
And Auburn gets Ole Miss at home this weekend. I think it's perfectly reasonable and maybe even expected to at least take 2 at home. You can protect your home turf, somehow sneak out 2 against Ole Miss, but you're right. Avoiding getting swept in both of those series, Ole Miss and Vandy. Now, Vandy's away. That's going to be tough going up to Nashville against the number 5 team in the country.
Rope down the right field line, foul. But Jackson Webb out here thinking he gets another extra base hit. What's he doing? A little foul ball. Nice play there.
It's a pretty nice play over there in foul territory, although guy lost his hat, so we got to talk to him about hat placement. Hat security. It's like ball security. You got to secure the hat all times.
That's why I wear beanies.
Yep. You look like a beanie guy to me.
Oh, yeah, late August?
Yeah.
Beanie guy.
Okay. You go in the big fluffy beanie with the little fluff ball on top, or what kind of beanie are we talking here?
I'm actually more the guy who's got those ear flaps all the way down. You can kind of tie it underneath.
Okay.
Kind of like a birthday hat.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Nice and warm. Your ear's nice and toasty. I like your style.
I don't hear that very often, Roddy. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
There's Jackson Webb wearing the Stormtrooper outfit tonight. All strike 2. What do you think about that? They call these the Stormtrooper uniforms.
Yeah, the white hats, they add something a little bit different there with the white batting helmets. Georgia Tech has come strong with the jersey game this year, the uniform game with Adidas, the first year of the agreement with Adidas. They've gone with the old school throwback unis on the weekend. They got the new 3-stripe life going on, so I'm a fan.
The baseball team was in some ways kind of a demo for Adidas as well. All of their gear last year, and I'm not talking uniforms, but their gear last year was all Adidas. And I think word got around from Coach Danny Hall and his team saying, hey, 3-stripe life, it's a nice way to make a living. Called strike 3 on the inside corner, and Ryan Watson struck out 3 of the last 4 Yellow Jackets.
Austin Wilhite, the lone yellow jacket in that group that didn't get rung up. That ball, that's a pretty good frame job behind the plate by Scheffler. I think it may have been a little off the inside corner, but hits the spot. Scheffler frames it up nice, and Watson's got himself another strikeout.
So Wilhite aboard at first. Here's Cameron Turley. Takes a breaking ball for a call and strike one.
Going back talking about the uniform talk, I think if you look at a team that's certainly benefited from their uniform agreement, you just look at the team on the other side of Georgia Tech today, being an Auburn school, or excuse me, Auburn being an Under Armour school. They have largely become one of the schools that's synonymous with the brand that they wear. A lot of that's because of the success that they've had. Obviously, Cam Newton helps when he goes and signs with Under Armour after. But when you think Under Armour schools, it's not far down the list. You think of Auburn.
We spoke about Virginia earlier, but Auburn making quite the run in the NCAA basketball tournament.
Yeah, how about that?
How about that?
Coming within a whisker of the national championship game. Honestly, they should have been in the national championship game. I mean, if we're going to go back and rehash it, that was a double dribble.
Pitch gets away. Yeah, Wilhite moves up to second base. And Ronnie, let me get on my soapbox here.
Uh-oh.
Apologies.
All right.
But here's kind of where I come down. And I don't think it's even that preachy, but I think part of the reward for getting into those games is you have the opportunity to get lucky. Now, you also have the opportunity to not get lucky, but, it's not the first time a team's gotten a bad call on a bad break that ends up defining, or I'd say defining, but deciding, an opportunity at a championship or even a championship itself. And those are part of the breaks, and I think, the rationale I think you've got to have.
And let's make no bones about it, even after that blown call,
if
Auburn doesn't commit a foul on a three-point attempt and a silly foul, then it's a moot point. But it's just tough. The one thing I will say, though, is I love the way that Bruce Pearl handled it after.
No doubt.
I thought that was incredibly classy, and him stating, like he did, that, hey, we had a chance. We had a chance to win it. And then for them to do it without Okiki as well.
Mm-hmm. There's a walk to Cam Turley. That brings Nick Wilhite to the plate. Wilhite still at second base, or I say Austin Wilhite still at second base after the wild pitch. That troubling trend of not throwing strikes continues here. 68 strikes, 68 balls for Auburn pitching tonight.
I mean, just like the symmetry.
Don't think you can include Steve Smith, Auburn pitching coach, to those who appreciate that type of art.
That's absolutely correct.
Georgia Tech hadn't done themselves any favors either. They've issued 5 walks. That was the 8th for Auburn and 3rd from Ryan Watson, who threw an inning and 2/3, giving up 3 walks, 3 hits, and 3 punch-outs. It's around this time, Roddy, that you start to ask yourself, what time's that bus leave for Blacksburg tomorrow? Are we going to be done by then?
I know. That's and Auburn's got to turn around pretty quick. Obviously, they're going right back home. But in a couple days is when that Ole Miss tournament or Ole Miss series starts. The SEC often playing those Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. They're doing that again this week.
Line drive smoked into right center field. Nick Wilhite will drive in his twin brother Austin, and Cameron Turley moves up to 3rd. RBI single for Nick Wilhite.
ball was absolutely smoked to right center field. And the Wilhites are doing the damage today, or at least in this inning. Austin led off the inning with the single. A couple of strikeouts from Watson, a walk. Ends up costing him as Wilhite comes around to score on the single from his brother.
10th hit for Georgia Tech tonight from the 8th different Yellow Jacket. And a mound visit from Steve Smith, bringing in a new arm for Auburn. Georgia Tech with an 8-4 lead here in the bottom of the 6th on what has turned into a long night for the Auburn pitching staff. Back in just a moment. You're watching college baseball on ACC Network Extra. Bottom of the 6th inning, the Yellow Jacket dugout has loosened up. They're up 8-4 here. Auburn, meanwhile, a little frustrated. Been a long night. Game they led 3-0, but now trail 8-4. Here's Bailey Horn, redshirt sophomore from West Texas. I don't mean West Texas, I mean the town of West in Texas. It's one of those, the state's too big and there's too many, not enough names, right?
Yeah. We'll just call this one West and we'll call the other one East. Bailey Horn.
11 1/3 innings for the lefty. As you can see, he too has struggled. But again, with where Auburn's at with the injuries, mixing in also a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series this weekend. You just cannot afford to waste too many bullets, and at some point you've got to count on the guys who are in the pen, and that was the point I wanted to make last half inning. But, you know, at the college level, Dallas Keuchel's not on the market to sign.
Right.
There's no midseason acquisition. You got to roll with what you got.
Yep.
There's no system to pull them up from. And that's part of what makes depth, really at any level of baseball, but especially college, you know, the ultimate difference maker. And that's why I think, you know, everyone, despite Georgia Tech leading the game comfortably there on Sunday afternoon against Boston College, everyone's kind of holding their breath, waiting to hear from Tristan English. And again, just a forearm injury that's got him currently in a brace, but not expected to miss an extended period of time. I mean, just what a sigh of relief for the Georgia Tech coaching staff, knowing that not only is Tristan English one of their hottest bats, but also their closer.
Like you said, Wiley, the fact that it's a quick turnaround for this Auburn team means, you know, typically during a midweek when you've got till Friday, you're going to have guys that may throw on Saturday, pitch on Tuesday, or maybe even a guy get an inning of work that's going to throw on Friday, but you can't do that when you go Tuesday, Thursday.
Horn using his hook. Stolen base for Nick Wilhite. What did we say about his brother? Nick now 6 for 8 on the year.
Nick's trying to catch up. Austin's got, 10 stolen bases on the season? 11 stolen bases on the season?
Austin now 10 for 10. And by the way, a fun Nick Wilhite note if you're a Georgia Tech fan. When Nick Wilhite gets a hit, the Jackets are 17-4.
He's the key.
7-8 when he doesn't. Punched into center field. This one will hang up for Kason Howell. He makes the catch. And that's the end of the inning. Jackets add a run on 2 hits. Leave a couple. Go to the 7th. Georgia Tech 8, Auburn 4. Yellow Jackets have scored their 8 runs over the last 4 innings. Single run in the 3rd, trio of runs in the 5th and 6th. And here's a fun note about this game tonight, Roddy. There's a number of them, but how about the amount of former Georgia high school quarterbacks in the starting 9? And 2 in the frame right there. Cameron Turley, a star for South Gwinnett under center, went 26-2 as a starter, now catching for Tech. Connor Davis digging into the box, led Blessed Trinity to a state championship his senior year, and had his heart ripped out in that state championship game. There's Barron Radcliffe, 2-year starter for Norcross High School. He had couple offers to play football collegiately at Boston College and Vanderbilt. And the fourth and final member of our football quarterback quartet here in this matchup is Rankin Woolley. He's in the hole, starter at Westminster High School. And that's relevant because the man that played Connor Davis, travel ball teammates with Rankin Woolley. Connor in the DH spot tonight, Rankin at first base for Auburn. Well, they went head-to-head in the football state final at the Georgia Dome as seniors in high school. Ground ball scalded at the Wilhite, ricochets off his glove, and Davis thinks about going to second, but down by 4 runs. You're just happy to have the base runners. So a leadoff base runner. They'll talk through the scoring here. But here is now Matt Scheffler, the catcher.
I think the question is going to be what happened to this ball as it came off the mound. Sometimes that mound can be tricky, creating a weird spin of the baseball, and it kind of kicked up on Austin Wilhite, and I would imagine that it scored an error, and yeah, it's official. It is.
Third error tonight for Georgia Tech. Fly ball stroked into center field. Nick Wilhite reaches up to collect the first out. And now that brings Rankin Woolley to the plate, who was opposite of Connor Davis in that 2015 Georgia High School Football State Championship. It was a 24-9 game. Connor Davis's Blessed Trinity Titans had a 15-point lead with 12 minutes to go. Woolley and his Wildcats able to rally back thanks to an onside kick as he grounds one through the right side for his third hit of the night. And the two former adversaries trying to launch a 7th inning rally for the Tigers. But how about that, Roddy? I mean, can you imagine being in the same locker room at the college level with a guy who was able to, in some ways, almost steal a ring off your finger?
Well, I think those guys have known each other for so long that it probably isn't as big a deal. You know, they knew that they were both good, but I'd be mad every day. Because it happened in baseball, too.
It did. Those two guys met in the baseball finals, and Westminster taking down Blessed Trinity again. And that, in game 2 of that series, it was Rankin Woolley on the mound trying to close it out for Westminster, and Connor Davis at the plate trying to keep it alive for BT. A little tapper back to the mound did it. But I agree with you, Roddy. I think those guys have known each other for so long, fouled away, that when Woolley transfers to Auburn this past summer, coming from Chattahoochee Valley by way of LSU, I think Connor welcomed him with open arms and said, hey, let's get a ring for both of us. You owe me.
See, me, I'd be petty. Like, there'd be a lot of doors that could have been held open that closed in his face, and a lot of last pieces of pizza that are taken right before he gets there. Be real petty. He'd use up all the hot water in the dorm.
Roddy, that's
petty,
cold-hearted.
Man. Oh, man.
That's not even. That's
You're
just
talking to a guy that never sniffed a state championship, so if I had to be teammates with a guy that kept me out of it.
Fly ball lifted to center field. Wilhite underneath it, makes the catch. Davis trying to tag from third. I think that play was closer than he thought it was going to be. Well, Roddy, I know many who say you won a state title your freshman year of college.
Yeah, it's
Right fielder number 41.
a little bit different there. You only got to win one game, beating the cross-state rival in University of Georgia. But the state championship in high school was elusive. It was the only time we made the playoffs in high school. We went up to Rome and got our butts kicked in the second round, and that was the end of that dream.
Here's Stephen Williams. 2 on and 2 out. Davis aboard at third after the error. Rankin Woolley a single. Rankin really been struggling in the last couple of weeks, but Coach Butch Thompson's got to be thrilled to see him have a good night. Sharply hit down the right field line. I'd argue Woolley would have had a chance to score if that stays fair.
Oh, absolutely. That one would have been trouble down in the in the corner there in right field. Always tricky down at Russ Chandler. You go from a decent amount of foul territory to nothing really quickly, and the ball kicks around over there in the corner. He would have had a chance for sure.
1-1. Ooh, pretty pitch. Hughes, by the way, with that flyout from Holland, has now begun his second trip through the order. Williams 0 for 3 tonight. Flyout and a couple of groundouts. Hughes trying to keep the Tigers right where they are. This is low and away. Right-hander from Flowery Branch. Redshirt junior for Georgia Tech, underwent arm surgery as a true freshman. This is the first year he's really looked back like himself. Muscled into center field, that'll score a run. Another 2-strike hit for Auburn. That's their 6th of the night, including 3 RBI singles with 2 strikes.
I was going to say, yeah, how many of those have led to them scoring runs? This is a ball that's up in the zone, and Williams just does a good job keeping his hands on top of that ball and lining it into the outfield. And this Auburn team's not going to go away quietly, Wiley. They have battled all game, and this guy at the plate, Ryan Bliss, has certainly been a tough out for Georgia Tech today, even despite striking out in his last at-bat.
That's an unearned run charged to Hughes, by the way, after that error from Austin Wilhite. As will any other runs scored in this inning. You almost kind of had a feeling, Rod, entering this game, just with where both teams were at, not only in their schedule, but also with some of the struggles this season, that this could be a high-scoring affair, and that's exactly what we've got.
Yeah, I think both teams expected a little bit better out of their starters. Certainly Georgia Tech thought Amos Willingham, or wanted Amos Willingham, kind of get back into that groove that he was in when he was going in the midweek every week and really consistently giving them quality innings. Didn't quite happen that way, and Auburn as well.
Round ball up the middle. Waddell gathers, flip to Wilhite, and he caught it with the bare hand. Tricky play, but Austin Wilhite atones for his earlier error. Auburn adds an unearned run and trims the Georgia Tech lead to 3 as we stretch here in the ATL. Bottom of the 7th inning, Georgia Tech with an 8-5 lead. And Roddy, we've mentioned before tonight that no lead is safe. Neither is any dinner reservation, by the way.
Yeah, I hope you didn't have Tuesday night plans, Wiley, because we are well into this game and the end is not in sight.
Inside ball 1 on Michael Goldberg. I've already moved back a few Wednesday morning meetings. I'm well beyond the dinner plans.
You're on the breakfast plans?
So here's Bailey Horn. They see Michael Goldberg, who had just 1 hit all of last week, Ronnie, for the guy who leads the ACC in hitting. Not accustomed.
He's been so good. And he had such a hot start to the season that, you know, it almost feels like, it certainly does. He's been in a little bit of a slump the last few weeks or so. His batting average down to 400. This after being up over 500 for part of the game. But this is a guy who has to be one of the biggest pleasant surprises in the lineup for Georgia Tech this season.
3 balls and a strike on Michael Goldberg. Jackets have already drawn 8 walks tonight. Goldberg's got 2 of them. And Alicia's on that pitch. 3 balls and 2 strikes. We had a solid crowd on hand here tonight, Ronnie.
We had a great crowd for a Tuesday night.
No question.
Many of those people have decided that work tomorrow is going to happen and the morning is coming quick.
Oh, and we've got Roddy Jones on ACC Network Extra. There's ball 4. 9th walk of the night for Georgia Tech. It's their 18th in the last 2 games.
Wiley, you know what they say, the night is dark and full of terrors, and It certainly has been tonight for Auburn as they've walked their fair share of batters over the course of this game. It's been an absolute nightmare.
No, and this is something that Georgia Tech struggled with mightily for a number of years, especially through 2015, 16, and 17. The walks were just so deflating. And it is so tough to maintain a defensive intensity in a game that has lasted this long with this many free passes. As Mack takes a called strike one. McCann 1 for 2 with 2 free passes, 1 an intentional walk. That was his 14th intentional walk of the season. He's 3 shy of the school record set by Mark Teixeira in 2000. And the question really now, Roddy, it's a race in the record book. Will it be Kyle McCann who sets the intentional walk record? Or will it be Tristan English setting the hit by pitch record? Tristan's been hit by 16 this year. The record held by Derek Dietrich, who got hit by 21 in 2010.
They've done it in 2 different ways, though. I was here in 2010 when Dietrich was here, getting hit by as many pitches as he did. Derek Dietrich was a guy that really crowded the plate. I mean,
he almost body armor.
Hung his elbow over the plate. Had that Barry Bonds type elbow guard and just hung it out over the plate and consistently was dinked. And Tristan, I think, just been on the bad luck side of it. Not a guy that really crowds the plate all that much.
Well, swing and a miss and a pitch in the dirt, but Goldberg advances on the wild pitch. 2-2 here on McCann. Will Holland, by the way, also been plunked 8 times this year.
That's not a record that you want to have.
I might push back on that. That's kind of I'm a tough guy record.
I don't know, man. That's a painful record to get. I guess there's worse records to hold.
Let's put it this way. I think everyone's in agreement they'd rather have the intentional walk record than the hit by pitch record.
For sure.
As Kyle McCann goes down on strikes for the 2nd time tonight. Strikeout for Bailey Horn. So 8-5. Here's Barron Radcliffe. We touched on these high school quarterbacks in this matchup. Well, Barron, his father, Vic, played in the minor leagues, drafted out of high school, out of North Augusta High. Well, take a look at those numbers. My word. I mean, that is jaw-dropping in my mind.
No, I'm with you. And despite only a .227 batting average, the reason that he has been, and he's going to be, a hard guy to take out of the lineup is his on-base percentage is up over, or it's right at 400. When you have a guy that's forcing that many walks, it's all about getting on base. And the bat will continue to come around, but that approach certainly do you well.
2-0 on Barron, but his father, Vic, a ball player. I think it's right where Barron got his love for the game. And for a guy who had 2 really good options, college baseball or college football, hard not to imagine that his father's love for baseball influencing that. And on top of that, Roddy, I also think for Barron, who was drafted out of high school by the Braves in the 40th round, but almost assuredly got phone calls well before that, as most guys do who are drafted so late. But I also think seeing his father sign out of high school said, you know what, I'm going to give myself a look at the college game.
And I think it was a good decision. He's a guy with a lot of raw tools, but the level of coaching, and you can see the impact that it's had on him here at Georgia Tech. And the question is, do you receive that same level of coaching in low A or even in high A if you have that, if you have the ability to make it there? You play so often, you don't practice quite as much. It's a little more of a business-like setting. It's a little bit tougher to get that individual work on a day-in, day-out basis. And for a guy with as many tools as he is, this stop will be a good one for him at the end.
Well, I'll add this too. One thing that he did not have on his resume as a potential pro baseball player, as Horn comes set with the payoff pitch. And he clubs it. Diving stop by Woolley. It'll be a foot race to the bag, and that's almost a big collision between those two former quarterbacks. And Rankin also played safety in high school. Well, that'll move Goldberg up. But one thing that Radcliffe didn't have in his resume that he now has, he says, hey, I can respond to failure. Because you saw the numbers at the start of that at bat, 44 strikeouts and 89 at bats. It takes a lot of gumption and maturity to withstand, quite frankly, that much failure. I mean, it's a failure sport. Nobody plays this thing without some, but 44 strikeouts and 89 at bats, that's a lot of failure.
Yeah, and the ability to adjust and adapt what you're doing.
And the guy has worked tirelessly. And I think, and Coach Danny Hall has gone on record saying this, he thinks one of the biggest game changers for Barron, beyond his attitude and what he brings to the plate himself, which, let's face it, you're not going anywhere without that. But James Ramsey, he has given Barron a lot of confidence that he can be an impact player.
The interesting thing about Radcliffe is because of his pure power, he's able to bring that average up to the high 2s next year, low 3s. He's going to have a chance. He's going to have a decision to make, because I think at the next level, from the way the game has gone, where strikeouts don't matter as long as you're hitting the ball over the fence, if he can do that a little more frequently, then he's going to be a prospect that it's going to have a decision to make next year.
Well, we know nowadays batting average, hard to even look at it.
Exactly.
It's all about the OPS, and right now Barron over 800. Meanwhile, Austin Wilhite got his money's worth, didn't he? Home half of the 7th. Auburn led this game 3-0. Georgia Tech took the lead 4-3. Auburn tied it up. Jackets stretched it out to 8-4. Right back up the middle for a base hit. And that will score Michael Goldberg, 9-5 Georgia Tech. And Austin Wilhite, another multi-hit game.
It's been absolutely on fire after that big swing where he didn't make contact. Shortens it up here, goes right back up the middle, almost took Horn out. Just barely got out of the way.
Wilhite over his last 11 games, Roddy, 18 for 40.
Almost a 500 clip. How about my math there? Just under 500. It's very good.
It's pretty good, Roddy. How long has this game been going on?
Almost 500 hours. Couple hundred minutes. And it's been you certainly got your money's worth here at Georgia Tech if you decided to buy a ticket here on a Tuesday night. Seen a lot of runs, and the amount that you've paid per hour is going down by the minute.
I was going to say, you know who really got their money's worth was the guy who paid our poor center field camera operator. Who's ever writing his check? They got a lot out of him.
Yeah, I don't know if the crew's going to be making overtime today. Sorry, guys.
Ball's a strike here on Colin Hall. Multi-hit night for him.
If we start getting past 10 o'clock, it's past my bedtime. We'll start getting delirious. We're going to have to start talking some Tiger Woods, some Game of Thrones.
Well, you got that clause in your contract, though, where you get out after 10, right?
Yeah, no, my agent forgot that this year.
Ooh. Well, have fun by yourself. Throw back over to first. But that said, though, honestly, Roddy, I mean, the opportunity, and this is going to sound like a shameless compliment to college baseball, but a game like Georgia Tech and Auburn, there's a lot of other things that you got to do that aren't nearly as fun as this.
Oh, absolutely. We have to poke fun at the fact that this is going to be a 5-hour game.
And they've got him rung up, but Wilhite sliding into second is safe. And Woolley slow getting up. Oh, my. Well, Austin, not sure that's how he drew up getting his 11th stolen base. But he's now 11 for 11, and Rankin Woolley came up a little lame there after that throw.
Where you're told as a base runner, if you're going to go, make the decision and go. And not sure what happened to Woolley over there at first, but
he's grabbing at his right pant leg, or was. Wilhite now at 11 for 11.
And well, it looks like, and it is true, they caught Austin Wilhite there. When you get that steal signal or you decide to go on a left-handed hitter, the way I was always taught and the way these Georgia Tech base runners are as well, is if you're going, as soon as he picks up that leg, go. It doesn't matter if he's coming to first or going home, just go. Either way, they're going to have to make a catch, a throw, a catch, and a tag to get you out. And Auburn wasn't able to do it there.
Sliced foul.
It's just interesting. I like that aggressive mindset because when you really break it down, the number of things that have to go right for the defense to get you out in that situation is a lot. Now, guys make it look routine all the time, but
sprayed through the left side for a base hit. Here comes Austin Wilhite. Ward up throwing. It'll go to the plate. Hall moves up to second, and the throw's into right center field. And now Colin Hall being waved around home. And a late stop sign, and Hall has to lunge back to third base. He's out of breath, and he also might be dinged up here. Yep, not looking good. Calling for the trainer. He's got a smile on his face, though.
I'd be tired too if I was him. He slid into second and then had to get up. Great piece of hitting there. The aggressiveness of Austin Wilhite pays dividends, but watch what Colin Hall goes through. The play goes to second. He misses it. Oh, got to go again. All right. Now I got to crank my motor up. I'm coming around third. I get the stop sign. I got to plant. Go back. Oh.
Yeah, I take that. I don't think he was hurt. I think he was just dead tired.
Yeah, he just take a break. A lot of times when you're sprinting like that around the base pass, the hardest thing to do is stop, and he had to do it twice.
Only thing harder than stop is getting going again.
Yeah, exactly.
So an RBI for Colin Hall. He's got 3 hits tonight. 10-5, Georgia Tech. Austin Wilhite comes around to score for the 3rd time this evening. Got the knees on Jackson Webb. You know what else has surprised me here tonight, Roddy? We haven't seen any substitutions whatsoever outside of the pitchers.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you forgotten 35 pitching changes? No, but you're right. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll start to see it pretty soon if Georgia Tech continues to put up runs here. But you're absolutely right. We have not seen that here yet. Georgia Tech hasn't really needed it, though.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's when things are really slowing down when you start pointing out the lack of substitutions.
Yeah, every jacket in the lineup has a hit with the exception of Cameron Turley, and I can assure you in the dugout someone has reminded Cameron Turley of that.
And down goes Jackson Webb on strikes. Turley will get his shot in the bottom of the 8th. But the Yellow Jackets score for the 5th consecutive half inning, putting up 2 in the bottom of the 7th. It's 10-5, Georgia Tech leading Auburn. Georgia Tech leading Auburn 10-5, trying to sweep the series over the Auburn Tigers. These two teams have split each of the first 2-game series over the last 4 years, but tonight Georgia Tech has a chance to sweep Auburn after picking up a 9-3 win. There's a look at some of the strikeouts. And Hugh Chapman on the mound for Georgia Tech. Right-hander out of Holy Innocents here in the metro Atlanta area. And Chapman will be the 5th pitcher Georgia Tech has used tonight. After Amos Willingham lasted just an inning and a third, Jake Lee came out, faced 3 men, sat down 2 of those 3. Court Rodig, 2 2/3, 1 run on 2 hits, a walk and 3 punch-outs. Jonathan Hughes, 2 1/3, 3 hits, 1 unearned run, 1 walk and a strikeout. And now here is Hugh Chapman.
Chapman making his 8th appearance on the season. Last appeared against North Carolina.
And gives up a hard hit line drive into right field. Leadoff single there from Judd Ward.
Center fielder number 16, Keeson Howard.
We've seen 22 men left on base. 15 runs have come across to score. And on top of all that, we've seen a double play. And there's a throw, or rather a wild pitch that moves Ward up to second.
It's been a game that's been full of offense. Not always the prettiest offense, but offense nonetheless. And both of these teams have had their opportunities with guys on base. Georgia Tech just been better at the timely hits to push them across.
Yellow Jackets with runners in scoring position, 8 for 17. Auburn, you saw moments ago, last time they were with a runner in scoring position, they are 3 for 17. Ground ball, high hop. Waddell gathers, fires a strike onto first to beat Howell by a step. Ward up to third.
Georgia Tech's going to continue, if the score holds, certainly going to continue its strong momentum. The win, I think they'll be disappointed. Tech is obviously disappointed that they let one go at Boston College over the weekend. Boston College having a better season I think many people expected. But a win, another top 25 win, if they're able to close this one out against Auburn, only adds to the resume there and to the strong case that they're making to host come regional time.
One and one on Edouard Julien. Draft eligible this year as a sophomore. A lot of good talent in this game from a draft perspective. Kyle McCann, of course, for Georgia Tech. Will Holland as well for Auburn. Conversation here between Turley and Chapman now. Also a lot of other ACC, SEC battles going on tonight. Plenty of them. You've got Clemson and Georgia in a duel, tied at 2 in the top of the 9th in Athens. Got Louisville leading Kentucky 12-5, and Lexington bottom of the 6th there. You got North Carolina and South Carolina, top of the 8th at BB&T Park. South Carolina with a 5-2 lead over the Heels. So plenty of action going on.
Those two open up at a big football game this year in Charlotte, I believe.
I bet it's not at BB&T Park.
No, it's certainly not at BB&T.
That said, though, of course, SunTrust Park played host to a football game just last year.
Sure did.
Hugh Chapman, sophomore right-hander. And a high fly, left center. Nick Wilhite with a beat on it towards the wall. Leaping, can't make the catch. That'll score a run. It'll be an RBI double for Edouard Julien. And I think it conked him on the head and went up against the wall there, and Nick a little slow to get up. He was able to avoid the Jose Canseco fate. I think it wall first and then noggin. Yep. Ooh, square in the back of the head.
That's tough. There's no way you can know that it's coming either. And
yeah, I think a little lip reading there. I think you said he got the wind knocked out of me. Is that what you saw?
yeah, that's one of those where it's like, hey, you all right? Yeah, I'm okay. And you make your way back out.
Now, Roddy, did you see the Marcell Ozuna play?
I did not. You're going to have to fill me in on this one.
Okay. Well, for those that did, and I'm going to pull this thing up for you here.
All right.
Marcell Ozuna, outfielder for the Cardinals, tried to rob a home run against the Los Angeles Dodgers. You got it rolling right here.
Oh. Okay, for those of you who haven't seen
in for a called strike.
Those of you who haven't seen it, Ozuna climbs the wall, determined to rob this ball. It turns out, though, the ball hits about halfway on the warning track, and he realizes that it's not going over the fence just before it hits, tries to climb off the wall, does so clumsily, falls on his face, ball hits the warning track, and goes out of play. That is terrible. That's the most not top 10 play I've ever seen.
I mean, this thing is hysterical.
I mean, he almost jumps off the wall to try and go back and make a diving catch. It's very embarrassing.
Almost as embarrassing as television talking about a video off screen.
That was terrible TV. But if you are listening to our voices right now, go Google Marcell Ozuna play. Click on the first link, and you will be as amused as these Georgia Tech fans are at the strikeout that Hugh Chapman just got.
Yeah, Chapman carving up Connor Davis.
Catcher number 6, Matt Scheffler.
And again, that's the type of arsenal Hugh Chapman has, and the reason he hasn't seen as much time on the mound for Georgia Tech is just, there's a lack of consistency there. Got a chance to try and strand a runner here, already having allowed one run. We have had plenty of scoring opportunities tonight. That's Scheffler at the plate. Called strike two. Georgia Tech, 10 runs, 12 hits. They've committed 3 errors. Auburn, 6 runs, 11 hits, 2 errors. Auburn's left 10, Tech's left 12. Check swing, appeal to first. He didn't go.
There's your appeal down to first again, Wiley.
Yeah. No, I do wonder if there ever will be legislation put in on the check swing. I don't think you can ever make that play reviewable. Because, that would halt the game too much.
Gosh,
I'm not saying you couldn't look at it and make a decision. I'm saying for the sanity of all those involved, I don't think you can do it. Fly ball, lifted to left, playable for Hall. Cradles the final out of the inning. And we go to the bottom of the 8th. Auburn adds a run, an RBI double from Edouard Julien. It's 10-6, Georgia Tech in front of Auburn.
The top of the 8th inning, the Tigers had 1 run.
Bottom of the 8th inning, Georgia Tech 10-6. Tech fans still enthusiastic here late on a Tuesday night. Jackets with 10 runs. They've scored them over a spread of 5 innings. But this is one story, Roddy, we haven't had a chance to tell. How about what these two programs accomplished last year? Number 1 overall pick, Casey Mize, who over 100 innings of work struck out 156 men. And then behind him, the number 2 overall pick in Joey Bart by the San Francisco Giants. Mize going to the Detroit Tigers. Well, we already discussed this. Those are Joey's numbers from last year. Now, granted, he didn't see many pitches to hit, but Kyle McCann statistically putting up better numbers to this point so far in his junior season.
It's been incredible for much of the end of the season. There was some speculation that Joey Bart was threatening Casey Mize, who for most of the season was considered the number 1 overall pick, as we've got a new pitcher on the mound. It's Kyle Gray, number 36, the lefty.
So Kyle Gray facing Cameron Turley, who's filling into that catcher spot for Kyle McCann, who assumed those duties for Joey Bart this year. McCann played first base tonight. And let me say this, if you want to get your money's worth on a night of resting the catcher, I'd say that this game, which presently is at 3 hours and 45 minutes, is a pretty good time to do it. A couple other defensive changes as well for Auburn, as they have put in a few replacements. Chase Hall now your catcher, so an entirely new battery. At second base, you've now got Everett Lau replacing Ryan Bliss. Two and two here on Turley now. At first base, you've got Brett Olson replacing Rankin Woolley. And then finally, at shortstop, replacing Will Holland, as Turley's down on strikes.
Center fielder number 31, Nick Wilhite.
Got Ed Johnson. So Turley looks to be the only Yellow Jacket who'll be hitless tonight. 0 for 2, but did walk twice. Here's Nick Wilhite, who was 1 for 3 this evening with a run scored and a run driven in. We've also got additional changes.
I'd say the changes for Auburn have been wholesale.
Yeah, let's say that. Brody Moore now playing third base, replacing Edouard Julien. Also got a new left fielder. You know what? Let's do it this way.
We got Jackson Henderson in left. We
got
Jackson
Henderson in left.
Jared Eaton in center.
Yeah, everybody's been replaced except for the right fielder, Stephen Williams.
Wholesale changes. Everyone must go.
It's 3-0 here on Nick Wilhite.
For those of you who are sticking with us now, we certainly appreciate the support over the last 3 hours and 51 minutes. It has been quite the ride. We have seen our fair share of people blazing the path around the bases, and Nick Wilhite will get a free one here.
Auburn pitching staff tonight, Roddy, they have walked a total of 10 men now while striking out 9. They faced 45 men, and more than a third of them haven't even put the ball in play.
The question for Auburn going forward is, how do you rectify that? How do you get these pitchers back to where you're consistently putting the ball over the plate and forcing the other team to beat you rather than allowing these free passes? It is in a league that is as competitive as the SEC is, and we talked about their tournament resume so far. It's going to be quick. Or it can happen quick where you drop a few more series and then you're a bubble team and you're needing a strong surge in the SEC tournament, which is going to be tough as well.
Tigers having a scrap right now with the injury bug biting them in all the wrong places. "186 pitches tonight thrown by a combined 6 Auburn Tigers. Jackets have scored in 5 consecutive innings. Here's a hard-hit line drive. That'll touchdown for a base hit from Luke Waddell. And Tech threatening again here in the 8th. Michael Goldberg. Oh, you won't believe this, Roddy. Michael Goldberg 1 for 1 tonight. He's got 3 walks and a sac bunt. Nick Wilhite at second. Luke Waddell at first. Is there anything you haven't seen tonight that you'd like to see?
We haven't seen a home run tonight. I don't know if I'd like to see it, but we haven't seen one.
That is wild.
Typically in a game where you get 10 runs scored or 16 runs between both teams, you see a long ball, and you know what they say, broadcasters dig the long ball.
Of the 24 hits we've seen tonight, we have seen 5 extra base hits, 19 singles, and all 5 of those have been doubles.
We haven't even hit for the cycle as a collective group today.
Georgia Tech out hitting Auburn 13-11. We've seen 5 errors tonight, 23 men left on base. Called strike 2. Kyle McCann on deck. 1 out here in the bottom of the 8th.
Looking forward for both of these teams. Georgia Tech going up to Virginia Tech for a...
Goldberg rips one into center field. Here comes Nick Wilhite. Throw will go to third. That's an RBI knock for Michael Goldberg. Now 2 for 2 this evening. First RBI, and now Georgia Tech with an 11-6 lead.
They're heading up to Virginia Tech for a Coastal Division battle, and they wanted to warm the bats up for the trip. They certainly are doing that. The ball is absolutely laced into center field as Georgia Tech able to push another run across.
How about this story on Kyle McCann, by the way, as he steps into the box, Roddy? Yellow Jackets enjoying their 11th run of the night. But Kyle McCann, who at present time stands 6'2", 217 pounds. He had quite the growth spurt in 8th grade. Takes ball 1. So he enters 8th grade, August, standing 5'3". By his June checkup following his 8th grade year, he's standing 6 feet.
Wow.
That's 9 inches. And so he goes to his checkup. Parents are with him. And the doctor comes in, gets the numbers, does the measurements. And as they get set to leave, he adds, Kyle, if you grow to 6'3", 6'4" in the next 4 months, come back in. We're afraid you might have Giants disease. Which, again, is a real thing and does affect a small percentage of the population. But for Kyle McCann, who said over that year span, he had to buy new clothes and new shoes about every 3 months.
Can you imagine his parents?
Well, I asked his parents what they thought when they said they thought their child might have Giants disease. And they kind of said, well, I don't think so, but I guess we'll keep an eye on it.
I mean, but I can't even imagine them coming, like Kyle walking in seemingly overnight and his jeans going from regular length to high waters and being like, you need another pair of jeans? What What do you mean?
Well, at that point, you say, all right, we're buying you shorts.
Yeah, well, even those, I mean, they'll start to hike up a little bit.
We're going to buy you some really baggy basketball shorts.
Exactly. I've got 2 under 2, so I feel like that now, but baby clothes are relatively cheap.
But no, that's a true story, Kyle. At one point, felt like he might have Giants disease, and now.
Also, I'm jealous. I didn't grow 9 inches.
Hitter.
I didn't grow 9 inches between 8th grade and now. I wish I could have grown just a little bit more.
Well, I promise you that the man at second base who was a star running back in high school, Luke Waddell, feels the same way.
Yeah.
Still rushed for over 5,000 yards as a high school back. From 3-0 to 3-2.
That's no small task in the state of Ohio. That's a good football state right there.
No, in fact, the team they defeated in the state championship, I believe it was Luke's sophomore year. Again, only one player and it's a football field, so you need 11 guys. But on the other side, on the defense defending Luke Waddell, one Marshawn Lattimore.
Pretty good player.
Cornerback for the Saints. Mack sends a big league fly into center field. And making the catch. There's out number 2.
Yeah, if you ask the people from Ohio State, the state of Ohio produces enough talent to power 2 big colleges in the region. They'll tell you that all the greatest players for the University of Michigan have come from their state as well.
Yeah, I was gonna go that next level. Yeah, they can populate 2 states.
Exactly. That's at least if you ask them.
Yes.
Michigan will tell you if you kept your guys in state, who knows what would have happened.
I can tell you what didn't happen though.
That rivalry is one of the more interesting ones in college football.
Yeah, I find that one. Now, I'd be curious for your insights. Obviously, you cover the college football game at a very high level. How would you compare the rivalry to Michigan and Ohio State versus that of, say, an Auburn or an Alabama?
Well, it being in one state certainly changes
Yes.
this. There is certainly a region of Ohio in particular that has been disputed for much of its history that borders Michigan. But it's interesting because there have not been a lot of periods of time in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry where that rivalry has been competitive. It's been a lot of one-sided runs. So it's very interesting to look at the history of the rivalry. You look at the 200th pitch for this Auburn pitching staff. So I think that's why you have to give the nod more towards that Auburn-Alabama, because anything happens in that rivalry, and the fact that those 2 teams are in the same state, and when you're born you have to choose. There's no line drawn in the sand where above it you're a Michigan fan, below it you're an Ohio State fan. In the state of Alabama, it's really drawn by family lines.
You saw over 200 pitches. Not in a million years that I think we would come close to reaching a single staff throwing as many pitches as these 2 teams have met. This is the 238th meeting.
Yes, we will reach 200. We have reached 238 pitches. The question is, will the Auburn staff reach 238
That's what I'm saying.
pitches?
Oh, yeah. No, reaching 238 combined, that's one thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's easy.
My word. Off the cap of the bat. A roller, a throw to first made by Brody Moore on to Brett Olson. Yellow Jackets score a run for the 6th consecutive inning. They take an 11-6 lead in the 9th. Top of the 9th inning, 11-6. Georgia Tech with the lead over the Auburn Tigers, trying to sweep the series and snap a 5-game winning streak for the road team in this series history. Once upon a time, Court Rodig was on the mound. He's now sitting on top of the railing. Been a long night here at the ballpark. Combined 25 hits. Roddy, as you pointed out, no home runs. And Micah Carpenter called in to shut this baby down. He replaces Hugh Chapman.
I'm going to propose a rule change here, Wiley.
Yeah?
Scoring change.
Okay.
In a game that is over 4 hours, the pitcher comes in the 9th inning and makes it 1-2-3, they get a save because they have saved us all.
I'd be tempted to give them a win. I thought you were gonna say if whoever gets the last out gets the win. To be honest with you, Roddy, I'm afraid we're beyond saving.
Yeah, exactly.
You and I, we've already been overexposed here in these 4+ hours of live television. And fouled off the massive Cameron Turley. He's got to sit there and be like, you know something?
Yeah, get some Cameron Turley.
I know I've been begging for that start. I wanted to get that start. He gives a thumbs up, too. Good for Cam. He's like, you know what? Bring it on.
I'm good, guys. It's all right. It's just fine. Nothing to see here.
He's a former quarterback. He's taking some hits.
A little bit different. Well, I guess at quarterback you don't see as many of them coming as you'd like, but
well, and they legislate him out of the game too.
Yeah, it's true.
You can't even touch the guy now, right?
Yeah. You know, you said it, not me.
Well, and Roddy, you were on the air. This was a couple weeks ago when Tech came into the 9th inning with a comfortable lead and saw it evaporate. So
yeah, it's true.
You know, nothing is out of the realm of possibility.
And honestly, for all the Auburn fans who are still tuned in, it seems like every time I do an Auburn game, it drags out a little bit.
Well, the one 2 years ago, that was you and me.
Yeah.
And it was 16-3.
Well, the most recent Auburn game that I did was an Auburn football game.
Oh, you're talking about the Auburn. Was that
it was the Music City Bowl.
Who'd they face? Memphis?
That was Purdue.
Purdue.
In Nashville, yeah. The 56-7 game at halftime.
We almost had a rematch there in the Final Four, didn't we?
Sure did.
Little floater. Waddell charging underneath his glove and into shallow center. Leadoff man aboard, Brett Olson. It's a tough ball to read.
Oh, that was really tough.
Do or die play.
He had no choice. He wasn't going to be able to get the runner had he sat back on and fielded the big hop. So you got to try and field the short hop, and wasn't quite able to reel it in.
Now batting shortstop number 7, Ed Johnson.
So here's Ed Johnson. Freshman from Trussville, Alabama. High school teammates of tonight's starting pitcher for Auburn. Carson Skipper, and there's a line drive into center field. So Auburn, as they have done all night long, staging a rally to see if they can break through. Pinch hitter checking in now is Devin Warner.
These guys for Auburn that are getting an opportunity to come in and do some damage here are taking advantage of their opportunity. How about that?
So an infield single and a parachuting liner to center. And for a strike. All 9 men in the lineup for Auburn now, with the exception of Connor Davis in the DH spot. So 8 of the 9 did not start the game. Micah Carpenter, meanwhile, making his 10th appearance of the season. The ERA of 4.97. But has pitched a little better as of late. His last 5 appearances. It's a ground ball sent to first, gloved by McCann. Takes a sure out at first base. Runners will advance 90 feet. But Micah's last 5 appearances, Roddy, 6 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, and 9 punchouts. ERA of $1.50.
He's been consistently getting better, and he's a guy that over the course of his career at Georgia Tech has kind of served in a few different roles, but one of the arms in the bullpen that Danny Hall certainly goes to both on the weekends in big situations as well as during the week.
This is Everett Lau. Backdoor breaking ball stays in the backyard. But, no, I think Mike is going to have a shot to pitch some meaningful innings for Georgia Tech as the season mows along. Got off to a rocky start, as we mentioned. Really struggled against UCLA. And Richmond as well. Falling behind here on Lau, 2-0. Yellow Jackets and Tigers, we have seen a run scored in every inning tonight. Fastball blown past him. Micah, by the way, after he graduates in May, planning to move on to Nashville and to pursue a music career. His sister, of course, sung the national anthem here at Russ Chandler Stadium a couple of times.
Pretty musical family there. How about that? Is Micah an artist? Is he a singer? What was he? Does he play an instrument? What? He's moving to Nashville to pursue music.
I think a little bit of guitar.
Okay, how about that?
Not quite the air guitar assassin we saw there in the third inning.
Not all guitarists can be as good as the gentleman that we saw playing air guitar to Blink-182.
And when you see that type of stuff, I'm willing to bet the only reason he's not here is because he had to get home and practice somewhere.
One can only imagine. You don't become an air guitar master by sitting around on your butt all day. You gotta get up
eloquently put.
You got to get up and air guitar.
Get air guitar sitting down.
Yeah.
Tell you what, that one I'll tell you he's happy right now. He says, "What do you mean this game's taking too long? I got a foul ball." By the way, I haven't been able to dig up Auburn's numbers quite yet on this. I'm searching for it, though. But I can now speak with confidence. This is the longest 9-inning game for Georgia Tech this year. 4 hours and 9 minutes against Virginia a couple weeks ago in a 9-8 loss. In fact, a month ago to the day. Presently sitting here at 4 hours and 10 minutes. Swing and a miss, pitch in the dirt. Turley's got to make the throw down on target. Max steps aboard the base. And the Tigers down to their final out here.
Auburn started off with a little bit of a rally here, or at least a couple base runners to threaten a rally. But after a ground out to first and a strikeout, Georgia Tech very close to getting out of this inning and through this game with another top 25 win under their belt and some good momentum going into Easter weekend.
Jackson Henderson up for the Tigers. Takes a call and strike one. Auburn, meanwhile, head back home, host Ole Miss in a 3-game series. The Rebels dropped 2 of 3 to Kentucky this past weekend.
Big surprise, one of the biggest surprises of the weekend.
Check swing, he went around 0-2.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Jackson
Henderson, that ball, that's going to be called this point in this game. You move that bat half an inch, and then he is You're getting rung up there.
Swing and a miss. Pitch in the dirt. Turley's got to pick it up and throw down. He does. And that's your ball game. Georgia Tech takes down Auburn 11-6 behind a barrage of 14 hits. Well, that'll do it for us on this Tuesday night in Atlanta. For Roddy Jones, I'm Wiley Ballard saying so long from Russ Chandler Stadium in Atlanta, where the final score is Georgia Tech 11, Auburn 6. All games airing on the ESPN networks are streaming live on the ESPN app. To watch this entire game on replay, as well as other games in our family of ESPN networks, log on to WatchESPN.com or download the Watch ESPN app. This has been a presentation of ESPN.